Okay, we're returning from closed session, and there is nothing to report out. Director Dransfeld will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
All rise. Place your right hand over your heart. Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Are there any amendments to the agenda? No. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay. Karen, please.
Director Malloy.
Aye.
Director Dransfeld.
Aye.
Director Roberts.
Aye.
Director Kelly. Chair Magner.
Aye. Okay, we'll do public comments. In accordance with Government Code Section 54954.3, the board reserves this time to hear from the public. If you would like to make comments about a matter within the board's subject matter jurisdiction, but not specifically on this agenda, in accordance with California law, the board will listen, note the comments, and may bring the comments back up at a later date as an agendized item for the discussion. Speakers will be allowed 3 minutes to address the board. Okay, so that we can speed through this, I don't want to speed through it, but be a little more efficient with it. What I'll do is I'll call a person, and I'll tell who the next person is, and if you'd come up to the area and sit in the chair so that we'll be ready to go, I'd appreciate it. Okay, Lynette Lucas. Next person up will be Jenny Hicks.
Good evening, board members, staff. My name is Lynette Lucas. I'm an educator. So I have been in front of representing and staff at the district representing a board. And typically I understand that the board members may or may not know how the Rec and Park District is ran. And in that, I believe that sometimes it's easy for a staff member to possibly misdirect the board's attention. And I do believe that in the schedule for Agape to take over the pickleball courts at Bob Kildee Park that this has happened. One of the things that I would like to show you, I am an avid pickleball player. And I believe that you guys were shown this bright schedule with this wonderful blue on there, and that so much, 80% of the courts were going to be offered to the public. But when you look at the time that a pickleball players, there's two types of pickleball players. There's your retired, and then there's your non-retired. And those of us who are not retired, our only time to to play is basically in the morning before work and in the evening after work. So all that time that was shown to you as blue and open and available to the public really truly isn't. I decided to make a diagram to show you the red is when the time that we're playing, and the blue that was represented as all this time for open court for the public really is a lot smaller than was represented to you. And so I'm here tonight to speak on that because I believe that the Agape courts being used at Bob Kildee, here's the thing, you have 17 tennis courts in the city of Camarillo, 4 permanent pickleball courts. That really isn't fair. Then when you bring in a company to take all 6 courts on any one of our nights, then that doesn't give us anywhere to play. Here's my issue. This is the layout at Bob Kildee Park. You have 4 permanent pickleball courts, 2 temporary. Here's 6 tennis courts. Here's my thing. You're going to have Agape come in and take all 6 of these courts on a given night, and then they're taking all 6 all day Friday. So I can't play Friday. I can't play Tuesday evening. Here I have going to give you, I'm not just going to complain, I'm going to give you some possible solutions. 1, don't use Bob Kildee. 2, let's put a pause on this Agape thing until we really take a look and maybe start in winter. Because starting in the summer, that's when everybody's playing. All the college kids are coming home. Teachers like me, we're off, so I'm playing more. 3, I'm going to ask you, why don't we give the tennis courts to Agape? They can take, and we can paint. It's very cheap. It'll cost you $1,000 to buy temporary nets, or better, have Agape buy them. And then all you have to do is use park personnel to put the paint. And then these are usable for everybody. So now there's no impact to pickleball players. There will be some impact to tennis players. However, they have 13 other courts to play on. We have none. The other thing is consider the impact that it's doing to Ventura and Simi Valley, because when your players can't play here, they're going to
Okay.
have to go there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Please hold down the applause. Jerry, I'm sorry. I looked at it and I apologize for that.
It's probably my penmanship.
No, no, that's fine. Lynette, you're next up, but I'm going to put it back at 9D if that's okay with you. Your second one. Okay, the next is Matt Carroll. Go ahead.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank the Pleasant Valley Recreation and Parks District for the wonderful job you do for the city of Camarillo. I'm glad to see the renovation at Dizdar Park are moving forward. As a past member of the Citizens Advisory Committee to the City Council, I know that project's been a long time in the works. I'm here to discuss pickleball courts in Camarillo. As you know, there is a need for pickleball courts in Camarillo. You are, after all, building an entire park dedicated to pickleball. We thank you for that. I am going to ask you to consider holding off the organized play and lessons during prime time until Freedom Park is completed. During the summer, as previously stated, the courts at Bob Kildee Park have 6 courts filled with players, with 6 more groups waiting to play, and several people that just leave the park because they don't want to wait that long. So there is a huge shortage of pickleball courts at Bob Kildee Park. Once the new courts are built at Freedom Park, we would welcome a fair mix of open play and organized play. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jerry. Okay, Matt Carroll, and the next person up is it Leroy Whitehouse?
Good evening.
Leslie? I'm sorry.
Okay. Good evening, General Manager Otten and members of the board. My name is Matt Carroll. My wife and I are 40-year residents of Camarillo. Camarillo pickleball, like many others are telling you tonight, is truly a gem, and I ask that you be very thoughtful when you begin to limit access at Kildee Park. I've been playing competitive tennis and other racket sports for more than 40 years, and I will tell you what you have here in Camarillo is truly an organic gem. After trying to resist this thing for pickleball for many years, my wife and I just showed up one day at Kildee Park, and at least from our perspective, I don't know about them, but we were welcomed with what we thought were open arms, and we got beginner mentoring sessions at no charge that were convenient. It just was an amazing, we were truly amazed. Any morning or evening without making prior arrangements, you can just show up and play. Within minutes, you're on the court playing, sometimes hard, sometimes not, socializing, laughing. And for many of us, tax-paying adults, it's the only time we've ever used our community parks as adults since we had children. In summary, it just works here, and it's very, very unique. I can tell you that from playing at clubs in the tennis world and tennis in general. It's really unique that you can just show up. And for some of our seniors, they can't work on this schedule. They show up on the days they feel well, and that may be the Friday that you have planned to take those courts. When your kids come home, it may be a Saturday. All of a sudden, you have no place to take and play your kids. So it's really unique what you have here at Camarillo. And the last thing beside that uniqueness I just want to touch upon is something that I know was important to all of you. And Director Otten mentioned, or General Manager Otten mentioned it in a recent email, and that is inclusivity. At Kildee Park today, we have folks from all walks of life. We have individuals experiencing homelessness to surgeons, people from all economic backgrounds, social backgrounds, and ethnic backgrounds playing and are welcomed with open arms. And anything, and I know how important this is to you, anything you do to disrupt that open play is going to limit that inclusivity. And I ask that you take that into consideration. Thank you for the time to speak.
Thank you. Is it Leslie? Yes. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have him put on here, please print from now on. And Dan
Ditto.
Godfrey, you're next after Leslie. Go right ahead, ma'am.
Okay, well, as you know, the most pickleball courts are at Kildy, as we've said. And if you had done your due diligence and gone to Bob Kildy and watched the play, you would know that prime hours are from 8 to 12 every single day of the week, and 4:30 to when the lights go out every evening of the week. Those are public courts. They are for us, the public, to use at our discretion. You're getting a private company to come and take over our prime time hours. That really is not acceptable. Pickleball has increased 158% in people playing pickleball over the last 3 years. The ages are over 55 is the number one group, but the second group is 18 to 35. So you have all walks, like Matt said, using these pickleball courts, and you are limiting our use of them. I've read what you are supposed to do here, and you are supposed to represent us and your community, and it's like you, in secret, made this contract with this company without asking us, your constituents, what we felt about it. And I don't know if you know this, but AARP, I believe, gives grants for pickleball courts. They will resurface pickleball courts, and they will actually help you build them if you apply for their grant. It's on their website. I think maybe we could pursue that. But taking our prime hours at Bob Kildy Park is really not acceptable. That's where we all play every day of the week. Thank you.
Dan? David, you're next.
Hello. So the people that just spoke before me expressed very clearly the concerns that we have where time to play, community-oriented. The difference between pickleball and tennis, if you're not aware, tennis you go out, you may play with one other person or as a double set for an hour. There's not a lot of community orientation there. In pickleball, that's sometimes what people go to have. They play pickleball and they're playing hard or just rec play, but it's also the community of talking to each other, sharing with each other, getting to know. We've expressed with other people, saying that getting to know people that you would not have gotten to know in your little circle of life if it wasn't for pickleball. So it's the community that just was created organically, and Camarillo is known for a very inclusive community compared to TO, Simi, Ventura, other places. Camarillo, people will come and it's very polite. I've seen people that are watching from outside the courts, and I'll go out and ask them, do you know the game? No, tell me about it. I express it to them, say, hey, if you ever want to try it, I have extra paddles. I'm pretty sure you just come into the courts, stare at a court, and someone will say, hey, you want a paddle? I'll give you a paddle. Come out with me. And they'll teach them. There was a gentleman that last year that happened, and then after playing after playing, he did an event, and he was hooked. And it was all because of the community was inviting and said, hey, here's a paddle. Come, let me give you the instructions, and we'll just show you how to play. And he got hooked from it. So it's that organic just chemistry that Camarillo has created of just inviting. And when you put the courts or the programs on Kildy specifically, you're going to disperse that community, and that's what people hunger for. So, thanks.
Thank you. David Orr. Susan Locker is next.
Good evening. My name is David Orr, former pickleball ambassador for Camarillo. Kind of feel like I'm running for sixth grade president. We have to give a speech to the auditorium, and it's a little nerve-wracking. My opponent promised root beer in the drinking fountains when I ran, and I lost miserably. Anyway, to the point. I am here in support of the petition, and which in essence asks that the Agape structured play, the leagues and lessons and clinics, not be scheduled during prime time hours at Bob Kildy Park. The petition was started on May 25th. It now has 504 signatures. I'm assuming you guys have seen the petition. If you have not, I have it with me. I would also recommend that you read the comments left by the signees that address the inclusiveness and open feeling that they experience at Bob Kildee Park, the same things that Dan was talking about. In addition, I'd like to recap for the board what the Camarillo Pickleball Association has accomplished since September of '21. CPA was formed as a nonprofit with the goal of helping to maintain the Camarillo pickleball courts, to grow the number of courts, and to bring new playing experiences to the community. Talking about court maintenance, CPA, with its own funds, not the district's funds, has purchased the following: brooms and squeegees, clocks, paddle saddles, 12 nets, and net systems for all 3 facilities. CPA has offered to pay for wind screening and crack repair and court resurfacing at Bob Kildee, all turned down by park staff. CPA has suggested the building of the kiosk, which was done, thank you, and has asked the district to install AED, defib equipment, which I see you have here. Talking about the number of players, since September of '21, CPA and its large community of volunteers have held the following events: 11 tournaments with 1,200 players, 21 monthly round robins with 900 players, 3 clinics with 72 players, 2 family events with 120 players, and 82 sessions of weekly free introduction classes that have been taught to 150 players. So that's over 2,400 participants. And most important, please note that with the exception of 3 of those tournaments, all of these events are held during non-prime time hours. That's what we're asking the district to do the scheduling during non-prime time hours and at other facilities such as Pitts Ranch and Springville. With regards to the Freedom Park complex, we hope to raise significant funds to help bridge the gap between budget and the actual cost once plans have been submitted. $22,000 has been raised to date. In closing, I appreciate the directors and staff continued efforts to meld the structured play with open play at Bob Kildee.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Locker?
So he's a tough act to follow, let me tell you. I think we all love pickleball. We love being there. It's really an impactful program. I think maybe you have been misinformed about the usage of the courts. I don't think we'd have any problem if you could schedule it during the times when we all like to be there. But it's all, most problems are about money, and maybe you seek to have some kind of revenue for the district, and that's great. Maybe there's a different alternative to using Agape, or, like I say, maybe Agape could do courts that we're not using. If they're giving lessons, I don't even think they need real courts, because it would work. Anyway, I thought I would talk about some of the history of the district, but I don't think I have time. So thanks for your attention.
Thank you. Catherine, I'm sorry. I looked right at you because I know who you are. Huh? Oh, okay. Would you please give your name?
Lickenstaff.
I know how to pronounce it, but other people were asking, so, okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I arrive at Kildee Pickleball Courts daily between 7:30 and 8:30 in the morning, Monday through Fridays, and usually between 8 to 8:30, there are enough players for games to be going on. And I play till about 10 or 11 in the morning, basically during primetime hours. And it's, there's always paddles up in the saddle most of the time, and waiting for games, and the courts are all used, all 6 of them. I know I speak for many others who exercise for physical as well as mental health. There are teenagers there that play throughout the summer and on their breaks, and there are high-level players even in their late 70s that hope to play until their 80s, okay? There is, as mentioned before, there's an amazing amount of unity on the courts. The young play with the old. The teenagers play with the elderly, the working class with those that have retired. Whether you're single, married, parents, or grandparents, we all play together. It's like has been said before, it's extremely inclusive. I've lived in Camarillo for 33 years. We've raised our children here, and now our children are raising their children here. Our taxes contribute to the development of this beautiful community, and I would just ask you to please preserve our community resources for the interest and use of community members, and not to turn it over to a private business for their profit during the time when the community is really out there using the facilities. And I ditto what Matt said previously, and it is really in my age and retirement age, it's the only time we use our parks since we've had kids of our own, you know, unless we're there with maybe our grandkids. And it's the first time that I have really used courts per se to play on for myself. And I find it really enjoyable. I find it a great way to keep healthy and fit and be more part of the community than I ever have been before on a daily interactive basis. And I love it. So again, hoping that you'll consider moving this business venture to a time other than prime time and on courts other than Kildee, where these facilities are available but not in high use as they are by community members. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Robert Hayes?
Hello. Thank you for providing some time today. I would echo and concur with the individuals that have spoken already. The one item that I would like to emphasize or call out is what makes Kildee special in Camarillo, and why is it specific that people are speaking about the open play hours at Kildee versus other parks that have pickleball courts on them. At Kildee, there are 6 pickleball courts, and part of that 6 is one challenge court as well. So a challenge court versus the other open courts operates a little bit differently in that players put their paddles in a separate rack, and typically that is where there is kind of open play but a higher level of competition play, so that it's kind of a king of the court esque type of play. So the winners will stay, and then others will try to essentially beat them in order to remain on the court. For open play to be successful, you need enough unplanned individuals to show up at the court, and then you can arrange play. And that's important at Kildee because there are 6 courts. And because of the amount of courts that there are there and the lights that are available, people will just go to Kildee without any plans of playing with specific individuals. And once they are there, they can then find individuals to team up with and get into a group of 4 and play on one of those 6 courts. The other 2 courts, particularly that are in Camarillo at Springville and Pitts Ranch. Pitts Ranch, as an example, only has 2 courts and does not have lighting. So if you're going to just show up randomly somewhere, Pitts Ranch is not a good option, because if there are 4 people who have decided, hey, let's go to Pitts Ranch, they might already be there and those courts might already be full. And at that point, the courts are full and now you got to drive somewhere else. So it's really that flexibility that Kildee offers and the amount of courts that it has that makes it of particular use for open play. And I think, and so the lights as well. So I spoke about the lights briefly. The lights are obviously extremely important in the wintertime, as the hours are much shorter of daylight time. And Pitts Ranch doesn't have good lighting, so if you're trying to play at night, it's not an option. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. We'll move on to 7, consent agenda. Is everybody ready to move on to it? Or we got... I will entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Karen, please.
Director Malloy.
Aye.
Director Roberts.
Aye.
Director Dransfeld.
Aye.
Director Kelly.
Aye.
Chair Magner.
Aye. Okay. We will now move to 8, public hearing. Just a minute, just a minute. Consideration and adoption of resolution number 738, approving engineer's report, confirming diagram and assessment, and ordering levy of assessments for fiscal year 2023-2024 for the Park Maintenance and Recreation Improvement District for the Pleasant Valley Recreation and Park District. We will now have a presentation by Justin.
Good evening, Chair Magner, Board. You'll be seeing a lot of me tonight, so just fair warning for you. I've got 6 of the 7. First step, my name's not on this one. We do have Jeanette Hansen available on Zoom as well, if there's any questions that you might like to direct to her. She works for SCI Consulting Group, and she's put together or she's been lead on the engineer's report. So if there's any questions I don't have or you have something for her, she's available as well right now. All right. So every year, Jeanette Henson with SCI Consulting Group prepares an engineer's report to establish the budget for the continued improvements in the services to be funded by the assessments and orders the levy of the assessments for the upcoming fiscal year, more commonly known to us as Fund 20. SCI Consulting Group is a public finance consulting firm with the mission of assisting public agencies with revenue enhancement and administration. We retained SCI Consulting Group to provide the assessment, engineering, and levy administration services. So they help us with all the legal requirements of our assessment district, and they do a lot of the collecting that the county won't do. So they're a real asset to the district. So the general services they do, revenue measure feasibility analysis, special levy administration services, and planning services. So any other projects we might have, they could potentially help us with those as well. So the assessment district for Pleasant Valley Rec and Park District was formed in February and March of 2001. This was due to limited revenues, as well as a growing community and expanding park acreage. The assessment district was created to help us improve park maintenance, fund future maintenance needs, fund capital improvement projects with a 58.7% weighted support of property owners on the ballot. So there was a good majority of citizens at the time that supported the assessment district. So here you can see a history of the assessments levied and collected. We've got a bit of a delinquency here, 22, 23, about 3%. It's just a part of going through COVID, slight recession. Some people, unfortunately, may not be able to make their payments on time. So we'll keep an eye on that and hope that that number starts to come back down to 0% in future years. So the annual renewal of the assessment, so we have that authority through the Landscaping and Lighting Act of 1972. So that act provides for installation, maintenance, and servicing of inside the assessment district. In order to do this, we need an engineer's report, a notice of public hearing, which we are doing today. The ballot proceeding included, so when we passed this back in 2001, we included an annual adjustment tied to the CPI for the Los Angeles area, however, not to exceed 3%. So we'll never raise the assessment more than 3% in a given year. The board ultimately does decide on the option to increase assessments by the CPI. So in 2022, the CPI change was 4.92%. So 3%, 1.34 or $1.34 increase. So $46.17 per home would be the new assessment. So here's a timeline of the assessment that we are discussing. February 1st of this year, we had the board direct the preparation of the engineering report. May 3rd, we had a resolution of intention to levy the assessments with a preliminary approval of the engineer's report. Today, we are having our public hearing, as well as a resolution to approve the final engineering report, confirm the diagram and the assessments, and to order the levy of the assessments. And in July, we will, assuming a passing today, we will submit and confirm the levies to the auditor, which will add the assessment onto property taxes. And then year-round, we, with the help of SCI Engineering, deal with property owner inquiries and delinquency monitoring. And so these are the three zones that we have, Zone A, Zone B, and then Zone 3C kind of carved out over here. It is recommended the board adopt resolution number 738, approving the engineer's report, confirming diagram and assessment, and ordering levy of assessment for fiscal year 2023 through 2024 for the Park Maintenance and Recreation and Improvement District, for the Pleasant Valley Recreation and Park District, ordering the levy assessment at $46.17. Any questions?
Do any of the board members have questions?
Just one.
Okay.
For posterity purposes, since this is taped, how much will the average homeowner, how much will their taxes be increased in dollars?
At the most, you're going to see a $1.34 increase.
So it's not 46, well, the slide's gone
Yeah.
now.
They currently pay, I believe it's $44.80. And so it would go up $1.34. So their property at most. So some are paying a weighted average, but a single-family home in Zone A, which pays a full amount, will be paying $46.17, which is a $1.34 increase on what it is this year.
Thank you.
So 67 cents twice.
Yes. You're not wrong?
Justin, on the delinquencies, do we get the penalties for that? Is the penalties the county assesses, is it also assessed on the assessment district money too?
I am not sure. Jeanette, did you hear the question, and would you might have a response for that?
Sure. Yeah, it's my understanding that the county takes the penalties and the delinquency, the extra charges over the actual assessment as kind of their role in collecting and enforcing that collection.
Okay, that's what I thought, so, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I now declare this meeting open for a public hearing to consider the ordering of the improvements and the levy of the proposed assessments. Prior to the conclusion of the hearing, any interested person may file a written protest with the clerk of the board. A written protest shall state all the grounds of the objection. A protest by a property owner shall contain a description sufficient to identify the property owned by such owner. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak for the ordering of the improvements and the levy of the proposed assessments? You have 3 minutes to address the board. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak against the ordering of the improvements and the levy of the proposed assessments? You have 3 minutes to address the board. Seeing or hearing none, I now declare this public hearing closed. Does the board have any other discussion? Okay. I will entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 738.
So moved.
Second?
Karen, please.
Director Malloy.
Aye.
Director Dransfeld.
Aye.
Director Roberts.
Aye.
Director Kelly.
Aye.
Chair Magner.
Aye. Okay. Thank you. 8B, consideration and adoption of resolution number 739, finding that it is reasonably or foreseeable that inhabitants of the Crestview Ranch LLC development of the subdivision at 200 Crestview Avenue, Camarillo, California, 93010 will be served by the improvements of the Pleasant Valley Senior Center and the Community Center Complex. Justin, you will discuss the presentation and go through the PowerPoint regarding the Quimby funds, please.
Correct. All right. So again, here to discuss the Quimby allocation of the Crestview development as for use at the community center / senior center. The Pleasant Valley Recreation Park District has included audio-visual improvements at the senior center in our upcoming fiscal year 2024 budget. These improvements are budgeted using Quimby fees from the Crestview Ranch LLC development located at the 200 Crestview subdivision. Staff has investigated and determined that these improvements would likely be used by residents of the new development. On June 6, 2018, the district received $26,612.25 in Park in lieu, or more commonly known as Quimby fees, for the construction of 12 units by the Crestview Ranch LLC at the 200 Crestview Avenue location in Camarillo. On April 29, 2023, the Board of Directors approved the addition of upgrades to the Senior Center in the fiscal year 2024 budget. These improvements would allow for expanded access to classes and programming for individuals who are hard of hearing, as well as the option to offer new and different types of classes and programming that are not able to be offered at this time due to a lack of these improvements at the location. Through the powers granted to the City of Camarillo by California Government Code 66477, the city has established a parkland dedication ordinance found in the city chapter 18.3, sections 10 through 120. A developer must plan for at least 217.8 square feet of park space for each person anticipated to be living in a development. In lieu of park space, the city may levy a fee to be paid to the park district for the district to develop park facilities which will serve the subdivision. Quimby fee revenue is restricted to park land purchase, new facility construction, existing facility expansion and improvement, and enhancing existing park land. However, the district may expend the fees in an area outside of the neighborhood if the neighborhood is considered served by at least 5 acres per 1,000 residents, a standard set by the city, and the fees will be spent in a neighborhood served by less than 5 acres per 1,000 residents. The Crestview development is located within United States Census Tract 52.05, Block Group 3. The population for this block group is 4,520 residents. This would mean there would need to be about 23 acres of park space to meet that 5-acre requirement. Current parks that serve this neighborhood are Nancy Bush, Springville, Mel Vincent, the Las Posas Equestrian Park, Valley Lindo, and an in-progress park at the end of Ponderosa, all totaling 30.4 acres. A population estimate for Census Tract 52.05 is 41.8% over the age of 55. So an expectation would be that around half of the new residents will potentially use the senior center. The senior center serves a population of over 20,000 aged 55 and older in the city of Camarillo. So using these facts, we can tell that there's a definite need for more services for those who are aged 55 and over. Senior center upgrades would allow for expanding access to board meetings that are occasionally held on site, which would give us an improved audio-visual, which we know sometimes it's hard to hear in that room. So it would people of the public who want to come in, we'd have the same kind of enhancements that we have here. And again, it would increase access for hard of hearing. There would be no additional fiscal impact from this action, as we've already budgeted for the improvements in the budget. This does meet 2021 Strategic Plan Goal Strategy 3.1, which is to renovate and modernize existing parks and recreational facilities to ensure all parks provide an adequate range and supply of active leisure facilities to meet the growth and diversity in population, programming trends, and new design standards. It is recommended that the board adopt resolution number 739, finding that it is reasonably foreseeable that inhabitants of the Crestview Ranch LLC development of the subdivision at 200 Crestview Avenue, California, 93010, will be served by the improvements of the Pleasant Valley Senior and Community Center complex. Any questions?
Director Kelly?
We had a similar presentation a few years ago regarding the same subject matter. And in that particular case, I didn't really, well, I don't want to say I didn't think. I questioned whether we had met the legal standard. In your presentation and in the staff report provided, you clearly have met all of the requirements, and I just wanted to say good job.
Thank you.
Director Jansfeld? Okay. Director Roberts, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Okay. I now declare this meeting open for a public hearing to adopt resolution number 739, finding that it is reasonably foreseeable that inhabitants of the Crestview Ranch LLC development of the subdivision at 200 Crestview Avenue, Camarillo, California, 93010, will be served by the improvements of the Pleasant Valley Senior Center and the Community Center complex. Members of the public are now invited to provide comment only towards this resolution. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak for approving this resolution? You will have 3 minutes to address the board. Not seeing any. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak against approving this resolution? You have 3 minutes to address the board. We have Lynette Lucas, is
Yes.
that correct? Okay.
Good evening, esteemed board members, general manager, and staff. Here's my problem with this presentation. Where's the money? I want to see the money. How much is this Quimby bring in? How much is going to the senior center? And if this presentation happened before, does that mean that these developments happened before? Here, I'm looking at your programming resolution 739, which says to update your parks. To me, obviously, my interest is pickleball, and one of the things that we're interested in is increasing pickleball courts, which fits this resolution. And for years, the last 3 that I know of, we have been asking for more pickleball courts. I'm going to ask you as board, you have a large member of your community here asking for more pickleball courts, and don't restrict the 4 that we have, 4 permanent courts. All those other courts that they talked about at those 2 other parks were only temporary. It is a trend. You see, and you were presented tonight with facts about how pickleball is becoming huge. In fact, you will see it on your TV and commercials now, just as popular as tennis was becoming. We are getting there. And so to me, some of this money should also be spent and invested in getting in pickleball courts. So as a member of the public that obviously has an interest in using these funds to improve parks to get more pickleball courts, I would like to see money. How much is coming in from Quimby? How much is going to the senior center? I'm not against seniors, okay? And I think it's an important aspect to the community. But as you saw, all these members, board members, I am asking you, ask them to show you the money. How much is coming in? How much is going to the center? How much can we start allocating to obviously community members who are asking you for more pickleball courts, a need that fits that resolution? Please take a moment, pause voting on this tonight, and ask for them to show you the money. How much is this going to cost? How much is the benefit? Because I didn't see any specific benefit other than being able to access the board meetings. How important do you think that is to seniors? What real advantages are coming to the senior center? Look, all too often I sit in these board meetings, and this is not my first one, and stuff is presented in a generic view. Please, board, I'm asking you, Mr. Kelly, you asked for specific questions before. I'm asking you to dig a little bit deeper. Ask a few more questions. Put this aside. I'm not saying dump it, but let's see the money. How much is it going to cost versus the real benefit? It sounds great from the outside, but let's really look at how this district is spending their money. Please, I'm asking you, because we're going to be looking, and we're going to be asking this board to continue to do so. Thank you so much.
I now declare this public hearing closed. I didn't realize you were ready to speak, so I will. Okay, you can come speak. Yes, 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 no problem. I will rescind my closing of the public hearing.
In the presentation, it was expressed that about just under 50% of the expected population for that Crestview area was going to be seniors. So it would be addressing the senior citizens of that area. And like Lynette said, the pickleball courts, I would say, are, because he declared senior citizens 55 or over, I would declare at least 40%, more than 50%, are 55 and older at the Camarillo pickleball courts. So I would agree to hold on this, to take an assessment that you already are feeding into a senior citizen community, an active senior citizen community, not a community. And sure, there are a wide range of accessibilities and physicalities to be able to address the senior citizens. But this is an active level for senior citizens to be able to get out in a community. So the same things that he's showing the numbers for 42% would be addressing senior citizens, you'd be addressing more than that at the pickleball community. Those courts need to be readdressed, whether you create new courts at Freedom or not. Those courts need to be addressed. There's nets that are going bad, there's cracks on the courts, and just because you claim resurfacing, we would have to address what's the definition of your resurfacing of those courts. Because the definition of resurfacing is just painting more lines on a multi-purpose court. That's not resurfacing. That's just painting more lines. Those courts have cracks on, I think, all 6 courts. That would be a big increase for that community, which serves all over Camarillo, not just a small area of Camarillo. So seeing this, I was like, well, that money can go to the courts, which would be serving more than 40% of the senior citizens. Thanks.
Madam Chair, could you please, there's been some misunderstanding.
Let me close the meeting,
Okay.
and then we'll discuss it. Close the public hearing. I now declare this public hearing closed. I'm looking for comments or questions from the Board of Directors.
Okay. If I get this wrong, Mary, please step in, because I wasn't prepared to defend this particular item on the agenda. But this particular item is simply to give us the ability to find that residents who live in a certain area would find benefit and also have their tax dollars go towards funding at the senior center and the community center college. It's not that no money is being allocated, from what I understand. It simply gives us the power to do that if and when we decide to do that.
So there's a couple things. So
Okay.
this has actually gone through part of the budgeting process, and just so everybody understands, this is about $21,000. This isn't the $1.4 million that's already going to pickleball that was already designated. So this is $21,000. So what happens is we have a certain amount of time that we have to expend the money. And so as part of the budgeting process, we had brought before the board that this would be one of the items that would go toward the senior center to help with audio and visual, and to be able to expand programmings at that center. So what this resolution does is says that we can spend those funds, the roughly 21,000, correct me if I'm wrong, Dustin, but I think it's roughly 22,000? Just under 26,000, I'm sorry, that will go to a project at the senior center / community center. So that just means that those monies need to be used there. And
those are Quimby
That is Quimby fees, which we get from
which
developers.
can only be spent on certain things.
That's correct.
They can't be spent on, like, general maintenance and so forth. Or, no, there are certain things they can be spent on. I can't even read. Which area are you referring to?
Let me find it.
So you're correct, they can't be spent on maintenance items.
Yes.
They have to expand capacity in some way, shape, or form. So,
And this was addressed in our budget workshops several weeks ago, and since we have to designate the Quimby funds, they're in a certain period of time. Okay. Justin, you have anything else?
Not unless you have any other questions for me.
Okay. I will entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 739, finding it is reasonably foreseeable that the inhabitants of Crestview Ranch LLC development of the subdivision at 200 Crestview Avenue, Camarillo, California, 93010 will be served by the improvements of the Pleasant Valley Senior Center and Community Center Complex.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay. Karen, please.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Dransfeld,
Aye.
Director Malloy,
Aye.
Director Roberts,
Aye.
Chair Magner.
Aye. Okay, forward. 9A. Consideration and approval of the preliminary fiscal year 2023-2024 budgets for the General Fund, Assessment District Fund, Quimby Fund, Fee Fund, Park Impact Fee Fund, Community Development Block Grant Fund, and Dedicated Donations Fund.
Want to add 2 more for you next year?
Can you get it any longer, Justin? Thank
Told
you.
I'm going to be up here all night.
I know you are.
All right.
I'm still looking for your name, so.
There you go. Right there for you, Chair Magna.
I see it.
All right. So today, staff is presenting the preliminary budget before the Board of Directors and requests approval of the preliminary fiscal year 2023 to 2024 budgets for the aforementioned General Fund, Assessment District, Quimby Fee, Park Impact Fees, Community Development Block Grant, and Restricted Donation Funds. Again, here's our budget workshop calendar. We first met on April 29th for our first budget workshop. We met again on May 9th for the wrap-up. Today is the approval for the preliminary budget, and hopefully we'll come back on July 5th for a public hearing and adoption of the final budget. Again, here are the breakdown of our funds. Fund 10 is our general fund. Common use resources, where we get our property tax revenue, program fees, rentals, any other grants that are not specifically restricted. That's what our Fund 10 is. Fund 20 is, again, our assessment district, as previously discussed, so our assessment tax and used for maintenance of the park. Quimby fees, again, is our developer fees for when a property is subdivided for residential use. We get either land or money when we add residents on a subdivision. Park impact fees, which are kind of a smaller scale Quimby fees, that's when we're not subdividing land necessarily, but still increasing capacity that will use our park. Fund 50 is the Community Development Block Grant. That is a HUD grant that the city has passed through to us, and that grant does end September 30th this year. So this is just kind of the wrap-up of that fund. And Fund 60 is our restricted donations, so private donations for specific projects. Currently, we have the Miracle League 805 ball field in there, which again, project is expected and hoped to be completed by the end of fall 23. So just a quick background, we do have a balanced budget for all of the funds. Just to highlight, we are budgeting for $815,000 of capital improvements and just over $2.9 million in Quimby projects. Some accomplishments from this fiscal year we're currently ending. It was year 2 of our 21-26 strategic plan. It was our first ever district-wide cost recovery and fee study policy, which helped guide our attempts to limit some of the losses we might have in our revenue with expenses. We did finish and receive our Arneal Ranch Park Phase 1 renovations as an amount of $433,539 from the state to help pay for Arneal, which we are very grateful to the state for. We also finalized the agreement with FM3, Fairbank, Maslin, Mullen, and Metz to lead a community survey for a ballot measure to fund the new multi-generational community center. Challenges in this coming fiscal year, we're expecting a slowdown in property values. With Prop 13, we only get 1% of property taxes, which equates to about $50 per $1,000 of property taxes that comes in. Additionally, some of the struggles we have with Prop 13 is as property values go down, if people want to have their property values reassessed, now they're assessed at the lower rate. So with the slowdown from 22 to 23, home values have gone down a bit for some residents. And so normally we might see a 2 or 3% increase. We're actually only seeing a 1% because we've got a little bit of a slowdown and reduction in property values. So that's going to be a challenge coming up this next year. Additionally, we do expect in expenses, the Pleasant Valley Fields maintenance is expected to increase. We are currently in the process of replacing our longtime maintenance group out there. And so we're trying to see what that's going to cost. We expect to bring an RFP back to the board in July. So we won't really know what that's going to look like until maybe September. So just expect we'll probably have to come back with a budget adjustment about that time. Additionally, our liability insurance continues to increase. We went up, I believe, about 20% from last year. So I think it's around $350,000 this coming year. So that continues to be a cost burden. And long-term, so not necessarily in 23-24, but in 24-25, our CalPERS unfunded liability is expected to be significant, somewhere around $570,000. I have a presentation later where we'll kind of drill in on what that looks like. All right, so just preliminary budget for general fund right now. As of today, we're looking at just over 10 million in revenue, 10.1 million, and 10.2 million in expenses. However, we are drawing down some of our designated projects fund balance, and so with the drawdown of the 125 to pay for the park master plan, we do actually see the revenue exceeding expenses of 82,377. So we are to the good with our budget as presented today. And again, this budget does include, as part of that expense, 815,000 in capital improvement projects. So we continue to keep the district up to the expectation or levels that we would expect. So just a graph here comparing the different pots for General Fund 10. Again, so we have tax apportionment, which is our biggest revenue source with just about 8.1 million. And then thanks to the cost recovery study and other changes, we are seeing our revenue bump about 700,000. So we are making some gains there. But again, you can see personnel, slight increase, and some of that slight increase is offset by the fact that we had a good CalPERS liability report. So it went up, but the CalPERS went down, but it's going to go up. So just a fair warning for next year, it's going to not stay on this trend. And you can see services and supplies went up quite significantly. Again, a good chunk of that is our liability insurance going up 20%. Again, so we're just proposing a 1% increase to property tax. Reached out to the city of Camarillo. That's what they're proposing in their budget, so we're just going to follow them. Typically is the process we do. So overall personnel changes, again, we're looking at full-time wages increasing. We've budgeted for the 2% COLA that is expected in July, as well as merit increases for our employees. That's about 135,000. Part-time wages go up as we continue to expand our programming, as well as minimum wage is expected to go up to $16 an hour next year. Retirement, CalPERS contribution rates as well continue to go up, just a couple percentage points, but as your wages go up, it's a compounding effect. And again, our employee insurance has gone up $57,000. Decreases, again, in personnel changes. We did have our final payment of that pension obligation loan from when the switch to the 2.5 at 55. So that's wiped off the book, so we don't have to pay for that in the future, which is good. Again, we had the workers' compensation decrease in claims, so our rate's gone down a bit, which is always nice to see. And then our unfunded liability, again, it went down 13,000, but that's just year only. We know it's going to go up a good chunk next year. So it's good for this year, but we know that the bill is coming. So just a quick chart overall. So district-wide, we're budgeting $343 in expenses. The reason for that jump is we've moved some of the COP for PV Fields. We used to pay that out of Fund 10 and Fund 20. Knowing that the PV Fields maintenance is going up, we've reallocated some of that payment to the general fund, because we know we have to pay for that somewhere. Admin, again, the budget gone up $200,000 from where it was this year. Parks has gone up quite significantly. Again, that's the cost of mostly employees, because a big chunk of our workforce is in the parks budget. And in recreation, again, a slight increase. So overall, we're seeing about a $1.3 million increase in our budget in the general fund from current year to next year. So capital improvement projects slated for next year. Here's our chart. You can see we've got some pretty consistent spending in capital. It's not something that we ignore. You see this dip in fiscal year 2021. COVID forced us to kind of scale back our spending, but you can see we've come back and in fact are exceeding the years before. So we are above pre-COVID spending in capital. So here are our projects for the next year. We would need to epoxy the pool deck. We've got some unsafe concrete around here, so I just want to make that so we're not slipping and sliding. Tennis courts, we're going to do a resurface on the tennis courts. Locker Park Playground, you can see concrete's uneven. We have an older playground there, still using sand, so accessibility is not where we'd like it to be on that playground. So that's our big project there. I believe we've budgeted $500,000 for it. Additionally, PV field irrigation pump system, that's, I believe, original when the park was created. So we're starting to see some failures. So rather than waiting and having supply issues, we'll fix them all now. And then we're going to buy a fleet vehicle for the park manager in lieu of paying a vehicle stipend. So it's just something we've discussed. So again, you can see these projects laid out. Additionally, we're asking just for $25,000 for a capital emergency fund for the case of capital that does break. We at least have a little bit of wiggle room in there. But again, it's below that $25,000 threshold, so anything more we'd have to come to the board for approval for. So that's where we get our $815,000. So let's work at assessment district. The assessment district, as previously discussed, was formed in 2001 due to the limited revenues, the growing community, and future funding shortfalls. It was created to improve park maintenance, fund future maintenance needs, and fund capital improvement projects. The Fund 20 itself was formed in fiscal year 15-16. Before then, it was kind of a part of Fund 10, so we split that out. It's good bookkeeping practice. The assessment rate adjustment for fiscal year 23-24, as discussed, 3%, which is, again, is an increase of $1.34 per household at the high end. So again, we see these different benefit rates. So only the single-family homes in Zone A are paying that full amount. It does scale down depending on the size or type of home and which zone they live in. So the highest that you will see a home pay is $46.17 in 1 year. So you'll see in the budget, and again, this is a little fluid right now. So we've moved that lease payment to Fund 10 as discussed. We've also eliminated the personnel costs in there. So before we were paying about 10% of our crew leads out of the assessment district because they do oversee some of the maintenance that is part of the assessment. However, as discussed, with the contracted landscape services, we expect to see that to go up quite significantly. With inflation, rising costs, and fertilizer specifically is one item. And so as of right now, this is our best guesstimate. But we do, again, anticipate to come back around September and relook at Fund 20's budget based off what we know at that time. So again, just a chart here comparing revenue. You can see is going up about 60,000 with that $1.34 increase. Dropped personnel, raised our services and supplies, so we're going up about 80,000 more on expenses on Fund 20. So again, we can see we expect to bring in 1.3 million in total revenue, about 1.3 million in total expenses. So we've only got a wiggle room about 13,000 at this point. So we've still got that uncertainty with PV Fields. So just want to make sure we're upfront about that. Looking at our Quimby fee, Fund 30. Again, so this is due to the 1975 Quimby Act, which is designed to ensure adequate open space acreage. It gave authority for passage of land dedication ordinances only to cities and counties. So we as a district don't get to pass a Quimby, only the city does. So if we want Quimby fees, we have to work with the city or the county. So this fees and or land conveyed directly to the agencies, which will provide park and recreation services community-wide. So these funds, again, are restricted. It needs to be an acquisition or development of parks and recreational facilities, which could be existing or new facilities, but the key here is we have to increase capacity. So we aren't actually allowed to use Quimby fees on just basic maintenance projects. So if we have a wall that needs to be painted, we can't use Quimby fees for that. We have to use some of our either general fund or assessment district. Again, so as we've had the presentation earlier, it requires local agencies to clearly show a reasonable relationship between the public need for the facility or park and the development project. So the fees are used within a specified radius that complies with the city's Quimby ordinance and are consistent with the adopted general plan and any applicable specific plan. The specified radius includes a planning area, zone of influence, or other geographic region designated by the city for Quimby fees. Being in a small city like Camarillo, it's the whole city. But you go to a city like Los Angeles, they really need to have this in place because you'll have Quimby fees potentially used from one area that needs it for an area that has the space, which is not the intent of the Quimby fees. So they really try and make sure you're using it to serve the community that the fees came from. So when we look at our budgeted versus actual expenditures, right now, the board has dedicated $1.4 million to the brand-new pickleball sports complex. We are working on that project. It's going as quick as it can. We are ready to do the demolition and rebuild, and we're just waiting on some permitting and stuff from the county and the city. So as of today, or as of this report, maybe it's changed in the last month, but the actual cost spent is $92,974.06. So right now, we've got $1.3 million in Quimby fees for the pickleball sports complex that's going to be carried over to next fiscal year and potentially into fiscal year 25, depending on how that project goes. We'd like to get it done sooner, but again, we are subject to the red tape just like everybody else. So here's just a quick update on where we are with the pickleball complex. We've done the design, we've done the soils report, we've cleaned out the lead and asbestos, and right now we're working on the stormwater prevention plan. So that's from the county. They want to make sure that if there's a storm, when we have lots of rain, that there's no issues with either proper drainage or any kind of contamination of groundwater or rivers and streams. Once we get that back, we can start doing demolition and getting the plan approval from the city of Camarillo. So we are making progress on that. So this is our preliminary phasing plan for the pickleball sports complex. I believe we're working up here for now. But as the project develops, you know, you can never account for every contingency. So we'll be coming back to the board on occasion to give updates and so we know where we're at. But as of right now, we're just waiting for that stormwater prevention plan. So for the rest of Quimby, we've talked about the senior center AV upgrades, the classroom AV upgrades, auditorium upgrades, and ADA upgrades at the community center. So these are, the KB home and Fairfield have already been dedicated for those purposes. So that's money, the board has already dedicated them many years in the past, so we can't reallocate those funds at all. They are meant to be used for the community center. So these are the projects that we have coming up this year in addition to the pickleball. And so potential ADA and other upgrades that we're looking at for the community center. Restrooms in the auditorium and senior center aren't quite up to ADA code, so we're going to use some Quimby fees to bring those up to code so we have that accessibility for those who need it. Auditorium stage, again, there is no lift, so there's no access for those who can't use stairs. Dressing green rooms, again, same thing, accessibility. These buildings were built a long time ago. ADA wasn't even a thing. So what we're doing, and then with the reception counter, entrances, flooring, we're fixing a lot of the accessibility issues where those in the community who are unable to even utilize the facilities that we have. So we're increasing that accessibility and the availability for those who need it. And then the last three funds kind of go quick. They're not as involved. So park impact fees, we're only budgeting revenue for interest on what we've already collected. Again, that's dependent on when people do upgrades to either homes, commercial, industrial. So we don't know how much we should budget for the year, so we just budget what we think we're going to get on our interest. Community Development Block Grant, again, the funding is expiring on September 30th, so we've got about what we expect to use in personnel, and then all of that will be reimbursed from the city through their grant, so it's really a net zero on that budget. And then the Miracle League 805 ball field, again, anticipated completion end of August 23. The revenue we're budgeting is just some of the cash that we're being held that's going to collect interest. And then we expect maybe about $300,000 in bills to come out in July and August. Maybe more, maybe less. But again, this project has already been fully funded by the Miracle League. The cash is already in our accounts. So it's not really a cost to the district at this point. So our recommendation tonight is recommended that the Board of Directors approve the preliminary fiscal year 23-24 budgets for the general fund, assessment district, Quimby fee, park impact fees, community development block grant, and restricted donations. Any questions?
Director Kelly?
I just want to correct an error I made a little while ago when we were talking about Quimby. I used the term taxes, and Quimby fees are not taxes. Quimby fees are monies that are paid by a developer when a project goes into a community. They're mitigation fees, basically, and they are set by law concerning what you can use them for, as it has been amply mentioned here tonight. So my apologies for that error.
No, I've, and what is this, like our fifth meeting on this? So, you know, I've made my opinions stated. I'm hoping we find something better to do with $125,000 than create a master plan report. And I'm hoping Matt can figure out how to keep everything green with that much reduced water budget that we have for next year. Hopefully these drought tolerant projects will pay off for us. If not, we get to blame Bob, who's retiring tomorrow.
Let's say about 24 hours.
Yeah. So, no, it's going to be it's going to be a good year for us. The property tax thing really makes me nervous. That losing 3% on our revenue measure finding we've never been under expectations on that. That's a little scary, but we'll see how it comes out.
Fingers crossed. Director Roberts?
I don't have anything, thank you.
Okay, I think we've discussed it pretty thoroughly with I think this is the fifth time we've seen it, so. I have a public comment I will take. Lynette Lucas?
Good evening, Board and staff. So obviously, I understand that you've done discussions and you've done meetings. Well, until I was impacted by pickleball, I didn't really give two hoots about what was going on here, clearly. So here are my concerns, because as you notice, as I've stated before, I have experience with board meetings. Here's my concern. One, when I looked online for the agenda, I didn't see your budget posted. Two, I didn't see the PowerPoint. I would like to have access to that PowerPoint. Three, I would like to have access to the budget so that I can look at, and when you guys are reading from the staff and they're making their recommendations, then I can see where my money's going. Obviously, I have a big concern with the property tax increase. As residents of Camarillo, we're paying your salaries, the staff's salaries. The board, we elect you. So it is incumbent upon me to find out what is going on with my money. Because if I just continue to pay, then I'm the idiot, aren't I? So I really do not appreciate, when we worked to the school board and we had a budget meeting and it was going to get approved by the board, we had copies of the budget that we had to make. I don't even see an electronic. So if that is available, great, correct me. But I think that should be made to the public because granted, sorry, I didn't know about any of this, and quite frankly, I didn't care until now my pickleball court time is getting played, taken away from me. So then it becomes a very important issue to me, and I would like to assist this board and its staff in any way, shape, and form to obviously get my concerns met, right? Everybody comes to the table, they want their concerns met. I'm putting my money into the pool, I have a right. So I would like very much to be able to have a right to see what's going on. That is something that the public is allowed to see. The other thing is, I didn't hear anything about what the projected income from Agape is. And perhaps it is in the budget, but I can't see that. Obviously, that's an interest to me. I was told, from my information, that Agape was brought in to manage these parks because you don't have staff, and clearly there are a lot of costs associated with staff. So I get that. But I want to know what are the projected money that's supposedly coming in. Maybe it is a benefit to me, ultimately, in the long run. Two, because at this point, I see it's unreasonable. Also, I think I just have mainly more points that I would like to be able to investigate the budget further. So if the board and/or staff could direct me on how I can access that budget, and I believe that you guys really should provide more information to the public, because this won't be the last time you'll see me, so I will continue to ask for that. And thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Okay. I will entertain a motion to approve
You
the...
have another person.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Could you come bring up the pickleball courts slide? You had a slide that showed the pickleball court?
At Freedom?
Yeah. You mean at Freedom?
The Freedom Park court?
You
Are
can.
you not able to
You
do
can.
that? Is there a reason why? So, there we go. So when you express that there's a $1.4 million budget, which is awesome that you guys are doing this, to go to the pickleball courts, that 1.4 million will not create with that design there. So I think it's a incorrect assessment to have this picture and then say you're putting $1.4 million to these courts, because that won't get created from the 1.4. So my request, I don't know how or who is in charge of making the assessment of what to build now and what to build later. But if the courts are there to be designed for the community, it would be great if you can get as many courts as possible, right? It makes sense to me that instead of saying, let's build 6 and let's fill in the pool and let's do these things and let's build the most courts we can and then deal with the big issues in another phase. But it seems like it's upside down. So I ask you, the board, if you are part of the decision that will help decide what phases go first, I would ask, please try to assess in the reference to the community to get as much courts possible in the first phase, using that 1.4, because that's going to go quick from what I'm hearing. It's just what I'm hearing. It's going to go quick, and the first phase is a little bit of courts and a lot of filling in the pool and the structures, and that can wait if you can get as many courts. So I'm just asking, please assess, if you can, how those phases are done, and is the community's best interest at heart in the sense of trying to get as many courts. That's the whole idea of those courts. Thanks.
Did you fill out a green card? What is your name?
Dan Godfrey? I did it on the first one. Thanks, I appreciate it.
Oh, Dan?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I think for both of you, you need to contact the staff, call the office, and the community service. Oh, you want to speak now?
I can.
Oh,
So all
she's
the,
gonna speak.
all the information is online. So if you go to our website, if you go to our homepage, you can actually go on there, and all the information from all the previous board, as well as special session budget, you can find all of that information online. And I'd encourage you, if you are interested, if you sign up on our website, you can actually get a constant contact that will send all the information to you, and you can sign up, whether it's for a board meeting, if you want information from a special meeting, if you want information from finance meeting, you can sign up for every single one, or you can sign up for none. But at least you can have whatever information you want, but it's on the website for you.
And it gets sent out, 72 hours prior to us meeting, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
It's
If you
typically
get the
more,
constant
but it must be,
contact.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And I think that will help both of you with your questions and things. So the pickleball complex, Director Dransfeld and I were on the ad hoc committee. We've worked for almost 2 years with that, trying to get, we had public meetings, we've had everything with the design people and everything. So it's not gone just with staff, it's gone out. David and Nancy Orr have been to almost every one of the meetings. You might want to talk to them so they can tell you a little bit more about it too. So I think we've been very, very open about how that pickleball complex was going to work. So, and what the cost will be and how the process has to happen. We are a public agency and we have to jump through hoops that I don't even care to think about jumping through. So it gets really crazy. People don't understand what public agencies have to go through, what our legislators put us through to get a project going. And I think we've been working with the design people for almost 2 years, haven't we? If not more than 2 years. So it's not just something that the 5 of us up here decided, let's do that tomorrow. That's not what happens. So we want to be transparent about it because it's a lot of money that we're spending. $1 million it doesn't seem like a lot, but it's like 10% of our budget, so it is a lot. Okay, did you have something further, Justin? Okay. I will entertain a motion to approve the preliminary fiscal year 2023-2024 budget.
So moved.
Second.
Bev's got it, I'll second.
Okay, all right.
Director Dransfeld?
Aye.
Director Malloy?
Aye.
Director Roberts?
Aye.
Director Kelly?
Aye.
Chair Magner?
Aye. Are you still up there?
One more, then you'll get a break, and then I'll be back.
Okay. Consideration and approval to allocate more reserves into the California Class Investment Account and adoption of Resolution 740 adopting a financial investment policy. Justin, it's all yours, sir.
All right. So, quick background. This one's a little shorter, I think. At the Finance Committee meeting on May 17th, 23 this year, it was suggested the district consider reallocating additional funds into the California Class Investment Account due to its more favorable interest rates. The district currently, per government code, diversifies its financial resources among various investment accounts, including aforementioned California Class, Ventura County Pool, and a local agency investment fund, all of which adhere to the guidelines set by sections 53600 of the Government Code of California. When the California class account was established in October of '22, the board directed 40% of funds to be deposited. Due to the nature of reserves and our contingency account, the total allocation has risen to 54.2%, but board direction is required for an intentional reallocation of reserves. Currently, the California class account offers a return rate of 5%, which exceeds the rates of the Ventura County pool, which is currently 3.65, and LAIF at 2.87. These differences in rates can be attributed to the relatively younger age of the California class as an investment entity. Just to speak on that a bit, so when you're running an investment pool like that, again, the California code is laid out, and if you're a public entity, you can only invest so much in so many different investment classes, bonds, I can't even think of them right now. But so because California class came in right before the Fed started raising rates, a lot of the bonds and maturities that they've bought that are low risk were bought at favorable yields. So where VC pool and LAIF were holding on to investments that were 3, 4, 5 months old at 1%, 2%, California class had way more money to buy these newer bonds at 3, 4, 5%. So just want to say that's really where this difference is coming from, is California class has more liquidity now where rates are favorable on these low risk investments that the government requires them to buy. What we will expect to see is when eventually, probably, the Fed will start to lower rates. And when they start to lower rates, you'll see California class actually decline quicker than Ventura County pool and LAIF. Because while right now they're playing catch up, in the future when they start to go down, they'll actually have the better rates because they got them before it went down. So it's kind of this parabola effect of the younger you are, the better in a rising rate, but as rates go down, you're actually unfavorable if you're younger. So I just want to preface that and just say this is a little bit of why we see this difference. It's not really a difference in the different securities or bonds that they're purchasing. They're just getting better deals on the ones that the Ventura County pool and LAIF have been holding on to for a while, if that makes sense. So while the district's investment policy states no more than 30% of the total portfolio shall be invested in a single type of investment, it also notes the local agency investment fund, CalTrust, and the Ventura County Treasury Fund are pooled investments consisting of a variety of instruments. Therefore, they are not subject to the 30% rule. Now, California class is a joint power authority pool, and as such, is equivalent to LAIF and the VC pool. So, through that justification, again, these pools are not investing in a single security. So these pools have kind of like a market manager or like a ETF or I'm just blanking, but where they are buying multiple different securities per the government code. So they'll have 25% of bonds in municipal, 10% of bonds in corporate bonds. So they are already diversifying their portfolio. So theoretically, and I'm not saying we would, if we did put 100% in one of these pools, we're still not technically putting more than 30% in a single type of investment. So that's the distinction between those versus if we just put all of our money in a savings account at the bank. So just as of April, when this presentation was prepared, you can see California class was at that 54% allocation. VC pool is 28.5, LAIF was 13.4, and PAC West, which is mostly our revolving cash, is at 3.79. So at the current rates, we're going to estimate an average return with the approximately 20 million we had in April. We're looking at about 825,000 in return. So if the board is looking to reinvest, my recommendation is I would not go more than 70% in California class. Now, all that talk about it being diversified does still stand, but the normal suggestion of don't put all your eggs in one basket, even in a pooled account, I still wouldn't suggest going more than 70%. However, we do leave that up to the board. But you can see if we just move money from the VC pool Quimby to the California class Quimby, we can increase our return by $42,500. Now, again, we're doing this as an estimate. We know these rates aren't fixed. It's not always going to be 5% in Cal class. It's not always going to be 3.65 in VC pool. I could say right now, we'll see what the Fed does next week. They're either going to hold or they're going to raise again. So I think that this 5% is reasonable to expect for at least another 5-6 months. It'll be at or above 5%. It'll average 5%. I think throughout the whole fiscal year, we're all guessing, but it's probably going to be above 4.5. So I do think this 4.35 average return is reasonable to expect. It might be a little lower, but I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say we might expect at least 40,000 with this reallocation. And again, the key reason for only 70% is to manage the risk. Another note, $6 million of that money in class is our quote-unquote contingency. What it is we get our apportionments in April and December. So our apportionment in April has to last until December. So we have $6 million from our apportionment that's sitting there, but as we pay our bills, that balance is going to go down. So just we can't expect that amount of funding to be in there to be consistent. But again, I think that it's still potentially a good idea to reallocate into the higher investment fund. So again, under the new proposed allocation of funds, with 70% in class, we'd increase our total return from 4.14 to 4.35, an additional $42,500 in investment returns. Meets our strategic plan 1.3, identify additional source of revenue to reduce the reliance of property tax. So the recommendation, district staff are requesting the board direction on whether we should reallocate more reserves to the California class account, proposed 70%. In addition, we do recommend amending the investment policy on page 3 to the following for clarification purposes. To change it to say, no more than 30% of the total portfolio shall be invested in any single type of investment. Note, pooled investments consisting of a variety of instruments are not subject to the 30% rule. Such pools include the local agency investment fund, California class, and the Ventura County Treasury Fund. So just a clarification where, and just to refresh, what it says now is that the local agency investment fund, Cal Trust, and the Ventura County Treasury Fund are pooled investments. Therefore, they are not subject to the 30% rule. So just a clarification, it's not those specific funds, but pooled investments such as those funds. So, any questions or comments?
Director Kelly? Director Malloy?
I think back to 30 years ago with the city where they had a real attractive investment opportunity and they moved a bunch of money in it and they darn near went bankrupt because of it. So, this whole topic just makes me really nervous, chasing more return. But the reality is, just as you described, that the younger investments pay more now. And if you read the staff report, there's very specific limitations and exactly the kind of things we can buy, and they're all very low risk. And $42,000 is pretty significant money for us. So that I'm not sure how fast the Ventura pool is coming up, so they may get closer. When they get closer, I'll feel more comfortable with a lesser amount in one place. But at this point in time, I think this is reasonable and prudent.
And I will say, we'll watch the rates, and we do discuss in finance at such a point where we might
look
see.
at them every month.
Okay.
I saw that we're pulling money from VC pool as opposed to LAIF. Since I've noticed LAIF's return tends to be lower.
So my justification on that, and I'll say it's a bit of a selfish one, but all the money in VC pool right now is Quimby, and it's an easy move from Quimby to Quimby. Conceivably, we could move money from LAIF capital to CalClass capital. My goal would be to not muddy the waters with moving some of this designated and dry funds into where we have, we're having multiple, which was kind of in the past is, I've done some cleanup on here. We had, 5 different accounts allocated in each pool. And again, I'll tell you, you can do, at board's discretion, I will do as you desire, but it was just a selfish request. I'll be honest.
Got it. Thank you.
Director Roberts?
I don't have any comment.
Okay. I know I have more current information than you do, but I think it was 5.19 on Friday, so, and you are right. It's very fluid, as I know, because I'm up there all the time. And I see what's going on up there. But I have a question. We have no money in CalTrust any longer?
No, that account is closed.
Okay, all right. And I'm glad to see that.
I will say, these are the only 4 places we have funds at this point.
With class, what is the turnaround if we see it drop, when the drop comes, because it's going to come, and I'm very up on that, but how fast can we move that?
With a
Or
wire.
is it even feasible to move fast and to wait to see what the county pool does and things like that?
I'll tell you, if we get a wire in before noon Pacific, same day.
Same day?
ACH transfer, typically your interbank is 24 business hours, so business day. So if we do a wire before noon on Friday, they tell me it's transferred same day Friday. If we just do a standard bank-to-bank transfer, say again Friday, it'll be Monday.
Okay.
So pretty quick.
Okay, all right. Any other questions? All right. I think we need to have 2 motions, it looks like, or can we do 1 motion? 2. Okay, we'll do 2 motions. I'll entertain a motion to provide direction of the desired allocation amount to contribute to California Class Investment Account.
What I'm requesting is what allocation percentage would you like?
Oh, what percentage? Oh, we need to have a percentage.
My suggestion is 70, but again, it's at board
Okay.
discretion.
Okay. Do I have a motion for 70%?
So moved.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Karen, please.
Director Roberts?
Aye.
Director Malloy?
Aye.
Director Dransfeld?
Aye.
Director Kelly?
Aye.
Chair Magner?
Aye. Okay, so that's 70% of the allocated, it will be the allocated amount. Okay. All right, the second one is to adopt, I will entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 740 of the Board of Directors of the Pleasant Valley Recreation and Park District adopting a financial investment policy.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Karen, please.
Director Dransfeld?
Aye.
Director Malloy?
Aye.
Director Roberts?
Aye.
Director Kelly?
Aye.
Chair Magner?
Aye. Okay. Oh, we have a new person.
Could we have a,
Yes,
could we have
I
a
was going to say,
timeout?
we're going to take a 5-minute break or 10-minute.
Been 3 hours here. So.
I just got to stretch my legs. Yeah, it's fun to sit up there in Sacramento because Rick keeps track of that by minute of what class is doing.
I did it.
You know, and I said to him, can I invest my money in it? He goes, no, you're not have public funds. It's amazing, but when you understand, and I.
You got some hot
Probably
mics.
getting educated, I don't know what your financial background was, but when you get educated about how new money does faster than old money and, yeah, it's interesting. I'm still learning.
Yeah.
At my age. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, my gosh. Turn me down.
Keep it going. Keep going. You're doing so good. Yeah, I did. Should have put me a little up. Separated more. By the way.
I kept my face. I kept my face. I know, you could have. Great. But my taxes pay your salary. No, 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 my salary needs to go on the revenue fund section. Huh. Okay. Maybe she's got 3%.
Slow your roll.
I know.
I got $20. I got $20 to make.
We're not even gonna go to 9.
Okay. Everybody on? We will reconvene with Kayleen. We doing D? Which one you doing, ma'am?
C.
C?
Naming policy.
I see that. Since I saw it way before. Kayleen will move to 9C, consideration and approval of updating the naming policy.
All right. Good evening, Board of Directors. In 2015, the district adopted a naming policy to establish an approach for naming the parks, recreation areas, and facilities, as well as amenities. Periodically, staff bring policies to the respective committees to ensure they're relevant. Currently, staff rely on the existing policy to manage the naming of district property. However, as the district continues to partner with various organizations, naming, sponsorships, and recognitions have become a topic of discussion. The naming policy is intended to provide guidelines and standards for naming and renaming of district assets based on, one, location, natural geologically features of the district asset, the identity of cultural or historical significance to the local area, or the identity of an individual or entity who contributes to the district or community supports. From time to time, the district has also named district assets after a person or entity who has provided significant financial support for the district asset being named. During the past year, the district has encountered many questions on what contributions can qualify for naming and recognition. In March of this year, staff started to relook at the naming policy and began meeting with the policy committee to analyze and discuss additional criteria for including sponsorships and recognition guidelines to meet naming opportunities. The purpose of updating this policy is to establish a more defined district policy and guidelines for naming rights and recognition based on the sponsorship and donation amounts. On April 26th of this year, the policy committee discussed and approved the drafted changes, which are presented tonight. Major edits were made to the policy to include the policy name and details added for naming rights. Upon review, staff suggests the following updates. Updated the format by rewriting the entire policy to include detailed guidelines outlining sponsorships and donations that can lead to naming rights. New name change from naming policy to sponsorship and naming policy. And then added introduction. Definitions were replaced with new definitions of district property lands, donor, gift, major features, naming areas, plaque, and sponsorship. We added a section for sponsorships to include naming terms and contributions that are based on a general donation amount. We added a section for gifts outlined for naming based on memorial donations. We added a section for recognition and signage to define approved district off-site and on-site recognition, which qualifies for plaques and signs. And we also added a determination chart at the end of the naming policy that you will see based on MOU. The naming application process and naming approval process was combined into one section, now named naming application and approval process. Bullet points were also updated to numbers, so you can see it a lot easier. The renaming section was rewritten to include added details and was moved to number 12 in the sponsorship section. bear with me, we made a lot of changes. The policy section was moved to the naming section with updated criteria to include more requirements to meet naming rights. The district will enter into an MOU for every sponsorship and donation to include terms, agreements, and recognition based on the amount. At this time, there will be no physical impact from this action. It does meet the 2021 strategic goal plan, which is the 1.3F. Create reciprocal opportunities for the district with entrepreneurs, both nonprofit and for-profit, to enrich the park experience and implement innovative approaches to revenue generation. My recommendation is for the board to review and approve the updated sponsorship and naming policy. Any questions?
Director Kelly?
The only thing I have, and it's more general than specific to this particular item, is that, and maybe we already do it and I haven't noticed it, but I believe that when we revise a previous policy, that on the printed policy that we adopt, that it has the revision date on it and what was revised. And that should be done on every time we replace one policy or amend a policy. It should be like at the bottom of the page,
We can do that.
revised.
We can make sure that that's on there, so that's not a problem.
Otherwise, I'm okay with it.
I just had a couple of questions. It is under section 12, renaming of district property. There, for C and D, parks named by deed restriction shall not be considered for renaming. District property shall not be renamed if the name was a condition of a gift and the noncompliance with that condition would invalidate that gift. Currently, do we have any properties that fall under that?
I don't believe so.
No,
but-
currently we don't, but like if something's deed restricted, we wanted to make sure to just capture that, so that way, if anybody was going to rename something, they would have to go through here and then go through our, if we have archives, go through there to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Got it. I just wanted to make sure we weren't, what is already existing.
That's great.
And then for, let's see here, under naming, section 10, a naming donation must cover a significant donation amount. Just for clarity, if we could define what significant is, if it's over 50% or a monetary amount.
We didn't put an actual donation amount, which was why we kept it as general, and we didn't put a percentage because it's based off of the total project funding. So if a project is 50,000 and someone wants to donate 5,000, again, that loops into an MOU that may not qualify for naming rights.
Got it.
So there's a couple of the biggest changes with this is that almost everything that we'll do will be an MOU. And part of that is because whoever's giving something usually has different intents in mind. So what this did, because we started going very specific, and one of the things that we started finding going very specific, and committee can probably talk to this if they want, is that then you restrict everything. And so like a lot of things, there needs to be flexibility. So all of them will have an MOU. And then the other thing that you'll notice in this policy is anything that is under 25,000, which is my spending limit, I will have the ability to get in an MOU. Anything over that would need to come through the board. So anything with 25,000 and a dollar will come through here, just like we did with the Miracle League, or any other major donor that would come through the board to make sure it's consistent with what we're trying to do.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Director Roberts?
I don't have any questions or comments.
Okay. Director Malloy?
Yeah, this was, This was something I was sort of reluctant to get involved with, but, we've been exactly zero successful in getting sponsorships. Named sponsorships and naming, and using that as a tool. So and part of the reason why is because we don't have anything in writing about how it works, so we don't have any guidance for Mary or anyone else to use to decide how to do it. So, that's why we got into this, and if you were going to be interested in sponsoring and having naming rights at, say, PV Fields, where there's 3,000 kids there every weekend, that's certainly worth a whole lot more than a corner of the dog park. So, but different things are going to appeal to different groups and for different reasons. So this just gives us a place to start. And for someone outside the process to look inside, okay, so what's involved here? One of the things we came up with is, how permanent is this sort of stuff? Because, you have to decide that. Imagine owning a huge stadium that you have the Lakers in, and it's called Crypto.com. We wouldn't want to be in that place.
No.
So, that's just one of the things you got to think about. And I'm sure we're going to be at this again at some point, but hopefully by having some more guidelines in place, people have a better idea of what we're looking for and how that might be a fit with what they're looking for.
And I was on that one too, and I just think that us having a procedure with the MOUs and everything in place will really make it much more usable, and people will actually be able to see what the process is. So I think that's a good move on our part, so. Okay, any other questions? Okay. I will entertain a motion to approve the updated sponsorship and naming policy.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, Karen, please.
Director Malloy,
Aye.
Director Dransfeld,
Aye.
Director Roberts,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Chair Magner.
Aye. Okay, we will move on to 9D, consideration and adoption of resolution number 741, approving a one-time off-salary schedule payment for full-time general manager and part-time year-round employees, and resolution number 742, approving the amendment of the SEIU MOU 2021-2024. Justin, please get me out of this.
All right. Hope you enjoyed your break away from me because I'm back. All right. So we're going to talk today about the one-time off-salary schedule payment. A little background: on May 9th, 2023, Board directed staff to evaluate if there would be enough cost savings in fiscal year 23 to allow a $2,500 one-time off-salary schedule payment. This was prompted due to excessive inflation seen due to COVID-19 and supply chain issues. The board requested this payment be made to both represented and unrepresented staff. In response to the board's direction, staff engaged with both legal counsel and SEIU, the Service Employee International Union representatives. An agreement was reached on an amendment to the current Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, between SEIU and the district. The amendment incorporates Section F to Article 16 salary plan, which states, effective the last pay period in June 2023, union-represented full-time, part-time, year-round employees shall receive what the California Public Employees Retirement System, CalPERS, and Section 571A of Title II of the California Code of Regulations defines as off-salary schedule pay, in the form of a one-time lump sum $2,500 payment, which is not reportable to CalPERS or deemed earnable compensation because the represented employees also received the wage increase identified in Article 16D for fiscal year 2022-23. There's a lot to say. We don't have to report it to CalPERS, which means that we do not have to pay employer contribution and the employees do not have to pay the employee contribution. So depending on which CalPERS rate you're in, could be as high as 13%. So that's why we refer to it as a one-time off-salary schedule payment. It's important that we call it that. So there will be 41 employees who will qualify for this payment as of June 7th, today. This will equate to $102,500 in total payments to employees, plus necessary payroll taxes. Now, again, since this payment is not reportable to CalPERS, the only associated taxes and costs to the district will be, in total, $6,355 in FICA or Social Security, and $1,486.25 in Medicare taxes. So the total cost of this, with all the nuts and bolts to the district, is $110,341.25. So that's the bottom line. Now, how are we going to pay for this? The fiscal year 2023 Waters Utility Budget, account number 7820, was originally set at $910,143. We do anticipate water savings of around $350,000. Now, that is because we had a very wet winter. We have done some turf mitigation efforts, and so those two facts culminated into this savings of about $350,000 by year's end. The surplus will allow for a funds transfer from the water's utility budget into personnel, $102,500 in the salaries and $7,841 into retirement, to pay for the one-time payment. This will still net an estimated savings of about $240,000 in water utilities for fiscal year 2023. So even after the payment, we've still got a little bit of savings there in the water's budget. So this payment meets strategic plan goal 5.1, position the district to attract and retain high-quality employees. So staff recommends the board approve the following. Resolution number 741, approving fiscal year 2022-2023 off-salary schedule pay, one-time lump sum payment to unrepresented district employees, as well as Resolution 742, approving and adopting the First Amendment to the Memorandum of Understanding between the Pleasant Valley Recreation and Park District and Service Employees International Union, Local 7521, representing PVRPD employees. Now, both resolutions together are necessary to provide a one-time off-salary schedule payment of $2,500 for each full-time and part-time year-round for unrepresented and represented employees. So each resolution deals with each different group of employees. The board will also need to approve the budget transfer from utilities water to personnel to cover the payments. Any questions?
Okay. Director Kelly?
None.
Director Drensfeld? Director Roberts?
Yeah, I just had one with regards to the retirement. I thought you stated about 7,000 plus to retirement, but also no CalPERS impact. Can you explain that?
Just as we determine retirement, the way that we have our Social Security, Medicare taxes come out, we also consider those to be retirement as far as the Springbrook account is concerned. So retirement is inclusive of Social Security and Medicare, which could be considered retirement benefits.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Director Malloy?
No, I'm happy we were able to. I'm happy we were able to do this, and in addition to not paying towards CalPERS on this amount, it also doesn't count toward their CalPERS earnings and their retirement value, which is only fair. So.
So, anybody else? Okay. Ms. Lucas?
Good evening, board, staff. So the reason that this issue came up, and I'm going to go back to this, and I'm going to be very careful to say it in a way that you understand, Ms. Otten. There is a Brown Act that relates to this board. It goes to you. So when you don't properly follow the Brown Act, which requires you, for example, the reason that I even brought up to this, because I was like, oh, this is related to the MOU. Where's the MOU? What does the MOU say? Is this fair to the part-time employees? And there's no MOU attached. Typically, when you have an agenda, and I did look up your agenda one more time online, there is no attachments, there's no documents. I shouldn't, as a public member, have to go searching through your internet website to find all these various things. You are required, under the Brown Act, it is Section 4, under regular meetings, A, agenda requirements. you have to provide a copy of the budget for me to look at. I don't have to go online. You're supposed to put one here. It doesn't mean I can take it home because it's probably 560 pages, but you have one here for the public to view. That is required. Secondly, when you have things on the agenda, such as the MOU, I have questions. I have the right to comment on these things. I have the right to call the board. I don't need to call the staff. I employ each one of you board members up here. I don't employ her because I voted to put you in office. First of all, as I'm complaining, I would like to commend you all. I do appreciate the questions you have asked, and it looks like you are at least paying attention to what's going on. But I also, in the previous item, would have liked to see that policy and that MOU agreement. And that's not provided to me. And that is my right as a public. I shouldn't have to contact staff and go through a thing. As well as, we did work with staff. The pickleball people did work with staff. And here's the thing why I'm upset about that. We were told at the last meeting to not attend. We didn't need to. Your staff person did not inform us that your preliminary schedule was going to be brought at that board meeting. Because I guarantee you, we would have all come to that meeting and give you guys input. My job is to come here as the public and let you know, as your constituent, what I'm asking you to do. So yes, that's why I'm here addressing you. Two, that's why I'm asking, I also have a concern, this brought up questions about the general manager, because clearly I'm not happy with her right now. What is the valuation process? In order for her to get raises, did you guys evaluate? How often do you evaluate the manager? In the school district where I come from, and I am familiar with the process that a public entity has to go through to get anything passed, you're right, it's a big PIA, okay? I understand that. But the public has a right to know. It is my money. It's my increases that I'm paying to pay for all of these things that are happening. So I do have an interest, and I do have a right. I would also like to know, when was the last time that your manager was evaluated? So I do have a right to find out how you're keeping this person in office and giving her a raise. Thank you.
Okay, I will entertain a motion. We will do 3 of them, it appears.
Unfortunately, yes.
Huh?
I said unfortunately, yes.
Okay. The first one is to adopt Resolution 741 of the Board of Directors of the Pleasant Valley Recreation and Park District approving fiscal year 2022-2023 off-salary schedule pay one-time lump sum payment to unrepresentative district employees.
So moved.
Seconded?
Okay. Karen, please.
Director Malloy,
Aye.
Director Dransfeld.
Aye.
Director Roberts,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Chair Magner.
Aye. Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adopt Resolution Number 742 of the Board of Directors of Pleasant Valley Recreation and Park District approving and adopting the First Amendment to the Memorandum of Understanding between Pleasant Valley Recreation and Park District and Service Employees International Union Local 721 representing PVRPD employees July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2024.
So moved.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, all right.
Director
Aye.
Roberts. Okay. Director Dransfeld,
Yes.
Director Malloy,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Chair Magner.
Aye. I'll entertain a motion to approve the budget transfer to support said payments in the adoption of resolutions number 741 and number 742.
So moved.
Second.
Director Dransfeld,
Aye.
Director Malloy,
Aye.
Director Roberts,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Chair Magner.
Aye, okay. We'll move on to 9E, consideration and approval to make a payment to reduce the district's CalPERS unfunded liability using fiscal year 2023 savings. Justin, please.
I think this is my last one, so.
I hope so.
All right. So at the Finance Committee meeting on May 17, 2023, it was suggested the district consider using excess revenue from fiscal year 2023 to make an additional discretionary payment, which we'll call an ADP, to pay down a portion of the district's unfunded accrued liability, which we'll call UAL, for the 2.5% at 55 plan for CalPERS. Now, staff has investigated possible options and is recommending the board approve the approval of using 1/3 of estimated excess revenue at the fiscal year end not to exceed 350,000 to make an ADP. So just a little background. In September of 2007, the board approved the switch of all employees from the 2% at 60 plan to the 2% at 55 plan. There was 39 employees at that time were switched to the 2.5% at 55 plan. Now, because of this switch to a more generous pension plan, an extra 0.5% in 5 years, there was additional unfunded liability added to the district's CalPERS. Now, in March of 2011, the board approved the addition of a 2% at 60 plan for all new employees after that date. This relieves some of the pressure of the rising costs associated with the 2.5 at 55 plan. Additionally, in January of 2013, the California Public Employees Pension Reform Act, known as PEPRA, took effect, which stated all new employees hired after that date would be on the 2% at 62 plan. There are a couple exceptions, but I don't think necessary to go through at this time. So, to date, the district is current with both the 2% at 60 and 2% at 62 plans. The most recent valuation report shows a credit balance of $112,609 in the 2% at 60 plan and a credit balance of $85,725 in the 2% 62 plan. So we are paid. We've had some good years. We're good in those for now. The current issue is with the 2.5% at 55 plan, which shows an unfunded liability of $4.5 million. Now, we have engaged with multiple municipal advisory companies who specialize in CalPERS UAL cost management. An important factor in the CalPERS UAL calculation is negative amortization, which is the taxes or the interest accrued is not initially paid off. You're kind of like with a mortgage, you're paying more of the interest than the principal first, and then it takes a while before you start actually paying down more principal than interest. In addition, valuation reports for CalPERS are prepared using a 1-year prior information, which is used for the next fiscal year, thus resulting in a 2-year delay in effects. This will be evident in the report prepared in this calendar year 23 using last year, fiscal year 22 data for the fiscal year 24-25 budget. So you've got a bit of a 2-year delay before you start paying for something that happened. In addition, CalPERS has a discount rate of 6.8%, in essence meaning they expect that their investments will return 6.8%. And if everything goes right and you're at a point where 6.8% will have no effect on your liability either up or down. So 0% is not the benchmark, 6.8% is really the benchmark. So in fiscal year 21-22, CalPERS had a 7.5% loss with their return on investments, which captured with the fact that we're supposed to hit 6.8 is really a 14.3% miss on necessary returns. So after accounting for that 7.5% investment loss plus the miss of the discount rate, we're going to see an additional $2.5 million added to our balance, which means we're going to have a $7 million UAL balance in the report being prepared this year, because we're doing that loss 2 years ago, or last year, which was a pretty significant loss if you saw the stock market. So I reached out to CalPERS. They provided me with their actuarial spreadsheet, or one of their actuarial spreadsheets, which allows us to kind of play with the numbers and say estimated returns. What are we going to expect to see, all things remaining equal? So with the minus 7.5% return in fiscal year 22, we know this is about what we expect to see. Our current estimates expect our 1-year payment to get as high as $816,000. So right here, 2031 to 2032, we owe $816,000. Now that's going to be our highest 1-year payment with the minus 7.5%. Now, they are estimating a 1% return in fiscal year 23. Now that was a couple months ago. Haven't spoken to them since, but we're using that number for illustration purposes. So you can see we had an $816,000 payment here. Our highest payment is now $925,000 in 1 year. So that's a $109,000 increase in just the one payment. Not to say all these other ones that are also above 900. So we're getting almost $1 million in a 1 year. And again, these estimates are assuming they get 6.8% average return for the rest of the lifetime. So it's it'll probably get higher, let's be honest. So, since they gave me this, I'm allowed to plug in an estimated extra payment. So they have their 1-year payment is, we'll say the 925, but we could pay more. So like with any kind of interest-bearing loan, you can pay more than your 1-year payment to help kind of knock that principal down. So with the 1% in fiscal year '23 and the minus 7.5% in '22, for an example, if we made a $350,000 additional payment, we knocked that highest payment down. Oh, I got a typo here. It's $877,000. So we've gone from 925 to 877. So that buys us about $53,000 in 1-year savings. In addition, because we have that negative amortization, paying off that extra principal, in fact, saves us $154,000 in interest. So the $350,000 is really worth $454,000, again, all things being equal, consistent returns from here on out. So it saves us more than we're putting in because of that negative amortization. So taking that, plugged a couple different numbers in there just to see what it would do. If we do a $500,000 payment, we're now knocking our highest is going to be 866, where back here, we're still at 877. If we did 750,000, just for the sake of it, our highest payment's now 846. And we're saving an additional 331 in interest. So the point of this is we have some extra cost savings this year. We know this 1-year payment, and the goal is kind of to make those 1-year payments more manageable, because if we get to the point where, say, we miss that 6.8% return next year, it's definitely going to hit over $1 million. And with a budget of $10 million, it's 10% of our budget just gone immediately starting the year. So we're already at so the hope is we can use some of our unanticipated cost savings at the end of the year to try and knock away at not only the total unfunded liability, but the additional payments as well. So, you know, you have money now, you want to pay off your credit card so that in the future your minimum payments are less. So if we have less money, we at least know it's not as big as it could have been. So the fiscal impact of making an ADP has 3 main considerations. So there's the initial payment. So by using unanticipated savings, the district can make this payment with no excess cost to the overall budget. So even after doing the one-time payment, if we did a $350,000 payment, we would still see an estimated savings of about $1 million this year. The second impact is a reduction of interest on the unfunded liability. Again, the negative balances accrue interest each year. Additional payment reduces future interest. So we're making the $350,000, which is an unanticipated savings, so there's no real additional expense. But we're also saving $154,000 in future payments. So it's that compounded effect. So, and then the third one is the actual reduction in future payments. So while we always, as long as you're in CalPERS, always anticipate on making a 1-year unfunded liability, and unless we got a windfall of $7 million and we could knock the whole thing out. So knowing that, how can we chip away at those payments we know are probably going to happen no matter what? And so again, if we make a $350,000, our highest annual payment goes from $925 to $872, which is for about $50,000 can go a long way in a budget our size. So this meets our strategic plan 1.2, utilize best accounting practices and forecast and optimize revenue while controlling expenditures. So we recommend the board approve 2 concurrent decisions. Direct staff to make a CalPERS ADP of 1/3 of fiscal year 2023 excess revenue, not to exceed $350,000, being a little prudent there, but that the board can direct otherwise. And then additionally, direct staff to, if necessary, make a budget transfer from services and supplies budget to personnel budget to cover any additional budget needed to make the payment. Any questions? Concerns?
Director Malloy.
There's one other thing that I'd like to add here, that when we created the 2.5 at 55 plan, all of the employees that currently had service time, by increasing their payment, their retirement amount from 2 to 2.5%, we had all that liability created that hadn't been contributed toward. And that's why we took that loan that we just paid off. So that loan was supposed to take care of all of this. That was what the CalPERS people told us. Didn't work out that way. However, now that that loan's retired, that amount of money that we're spending each year on that loan will be similar to what we're proposing doing here. And over time, we'll make a real difference in this. I mean, it doesn't feel like a huge immediate return. But basically what we're doing is we're taking a 6.8% loan that we've been given, whether we wanted it or not, and we're reducing the principal on it by keep making these payments. And if we don't, we risk getting swallowed by this over time when the investment returns are well below what they need to be. And keep in mind, the 6.8% is on the full liability amount. We're only about 70% funded now. So 6.8 isn't enough because you're short almost a third of what you need. So you really need more like 10% a year. So it's really tough. It's once you get behind or behind her. So we got to start catching up. And this year we had some luck with the weather. We also had some terrific fiscal reduction in expenses and increases in revenues. Our revenues are up really substantially. So this is very comfortable for us to do this. What I want to say here is this needs to be an annual conversation because that's the only way we're going to ever get rid of that 6.8% monster. Some cities are taking funds and sticking them in investment accounts and trying to earn 5-6% long-term and then paying somebody 1% to watch it. Meanwhile, the meter keeps running at 6.8%. And it's just fiscally smarter to pay down the loan than it is to try and earn your way back because you're always going to be running behind. Granted, the interest rates are nice now and you can get close to that, but it makes much more sense, especially the monkey business they do at the financing where they don't start billing you for 2 years and then negative amortize for 5 years. It's like if someone tried to sell you a house that way, they'd put them in jail. It's an irresponsible way to handle debt. So the sooner we can get on top of it, the better. And that's why we suggested this. Finance, the staff didn't just sign off on this. Bev and I did on finance. So.
Director Kelly?
Yes, for the benefit of the public, we're talking like some big numbers, 900 and something $1,000 single year payment and so forth. Can you just briefly explain why we even owe this money?
Try to be brief. So the way that CalPERS works is it's a pension system. So it's a state pension run by the California government through legislative authority. And so we enroll employees into the pension. And as the employees work, there's a contribution by the employee and a contribution by the employer. And so depending on your pension is how much you have to contribute to make those payments. So when we say 2.5 at 55, breaking that down, 2.5% means for every year of service, you get 2.5% of your either last year or last 3 years averaged salary. At 55 is when you get the full 2.5%. So if you retire at 50, you won't get 2.5%, and you might get 2%. So they have a table that you can look at. For 62, or 2 at 62, so if you work till you're 62, you'll get 2% times your years of service times your 3 years of annual salary. So for convenience, 30 years is typically what we say before you retire. 30 years times 2%, 60%. At 100,000 was your 3 years average. You're going to make 60,000 in your pension from the state for the rest of your life. Now, the 2.5 at 55, you can see where that really compounded is you don't have to work an extra 7 years. So you get to take your pension 7 years earlier, but also you're getting an extra 5% or 0.5% on your years of service. So if you get your 30 years at 55, and you start working at 25 in CalPERS and you work till you're 55, 30 times 2.5% is 70%. 70, 75.
75.
65.
A lot.
75. So an extra 15%. So the same $100,000 salary gets you $75,000 per year. So the state has to pay an extra $15,000 a year, and you're starting 7 years early. And that's to say, if you work beyond the 55, you're now getting more than 2.5%, and you're getting additional years of service. So this is how this kind of gets out of control is 2.5 at 55, people used to retire at 55. You have people who aren't retiring until they're 60, 62, which is good, work, but now you're getting an extra, now it's 3% on your 3 years average and an extra 7 years. So now instead of 75,000, you're getting 90,000. And so this, without complaining, the state has kind of created this monster, which is why they've done the PEPRA thing, is we can't keep paying all these people all this money because they have to fund it. And so really the burden goes on the employers. Because again, the employees contribute and the employers contribute. So while you're working, you're not collecting the pension, you're contributing 10% from your employee paycheck and the employer contributes 10%. The employee stops working, starts collecting, so now they're taking money out instead of putting money in. The employer is still only contributing 10% of the working employees. So you're not fully funding an employee's pension. If ideally you are, but it's not actually how it's working out. So that's where this unfunded liability is. The state says, hey, to pay all these people that are retired and drawing down, and what we think the people who are working will eventually retire and draw down, you owe us $4.5 million. And then they go, oh, our investments returned minus 7.5%. So now you need to owe us $7 million to pay all these pension payments.
The number, like for instance, in year 2031, 32, there's a number, 6,040,000, and the yearly is 925. What does the 60/40 represent? Actually, what goes into that number?
So that is, so they do an actuarial, they do an estimate, and they have a I'm told once you know it, it's not that complex, but they have a complex formula they plug in. Number of retirees, average age.
But it includes some assumptions, correct?
It does include some assumptions, but they say that is how much we think you owe in that year to pay for what we think all these pensions are worth. So
That's the 900,000.
That's just the 1 year pay.
And how does this, how does a district like ours get saddled with a $6 million figure? How did that come about?
Decisions from previous boards, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's the 2.5 at 55, and you have employees you had 39 employees go at 2.5 at 55 that weren't paying into that. So the contribution was assuming 2 at 60. So now we say 2.5 at 55.
But if that number isn't 6, it would still be 4, right?
It would be something.
Yeah.
It would be significantly less, and perhaps the district would have been able to maintain it with some smaller additional payments. So like with where we're at with the PEPRA, the 62 or the 2 at 62. We're well funded in that one.
And that number right there only represent the retirees, is that what you're saying?
Retirees and estimated current workers. So essentially what this says is in fiscal year, so using the 60/40, they say in fiscal year 32, the district owes CalPERS $6,040,000. So kind of like a mortgage. Right now I owe $420,000 on my house. I could pay that whole amount now and be whole. And so with CalPERS, we could pay the $6 million, not owe anything in the future. The problem is that assumes a 6.8% on the CalPERS investments. So there's kind of two things going on.
So it's a moving goalpost type situation. So if we pay, let's assume we paid it off, that doesn't mean that it would actually go away, right?
The only way this goes away is when nobody is in the 2.5 at 55 plan. And that's the only, so this, again, they're estimating 2044 to 45 is when nobody will be working or drawing from the 2.5 at 55 plan. Now, that's only 20 years. I mean, we have people who are collecting that plan who are 50. So in 20 years, they might still be drawing from that plan, so this might not even actually go away in 2045. And this is also assuming a 6.8% return.
Well, I noticed on PERS website, they said, it kind of startled me when they said it, but they don't have any bones about it. They said, well, we projected a 6.8, but we ended up with a -7 and change. But all is not lost because we still have the government entities that we can suck money away from. And it was like, so, hey, we didn't do that bad because we still have this safety net of this money that we can extract from these government entities. And so if their assumption is wrong and they go negative again like they did, then what happens? Does that, if we pay that $350, which, and I'm not, please don't go by what I say, how I'm going to vote, okay? But if that happens, is paying that $350 still smart?
I will say yes, because there's two factors. The first one, just if we don't make these payments and we default, then there is potential that people lose their pensions. It's happened. If districts and governments can't pay into CalPERS and it gets to a point where they just dissolve it, they will stop paying pensions. It's happened. So,
but what I'm getting at, let's assume we had to pay that $925 this year. That would be tragic, right? But at some year, when is it, not that too far down the line, some year we're going to have to make that payment.
correct. And so why we would want to do it regardless of the way the market. So the estimate with 350 is we can knock one of the 1 year's payment. Again, it's over a couple years, but 1 year we could go from 920 to 870. Now, let's assume we don't hit the 6.8 and we lose. Well, that 870 is now 920 again.
So it could go right back up there.
But if we don't do it, the 920 becomes 970.
Yeah.
So we still make an extra 50, but at least we use some of the savings here, knowing in the future we've at least relieved some of that pressure. Now, again, if we hit another minus 7.5, and one of our year's payments might go up to 1,050,000. But if we make that payment now, maybe it's only $1 million. It's still a lot, and it could happen, but at least we're saving that 50,000, which, could mean a lot in that year. So you still get the savings, and this is what we're hoping.
One way or another.
One way or the other. Yeah. Do you save from the lower number or the higher number?
Well, hopefully this conversation, anybody that wants to dig up this videotape will be able to figure out what we were talking about.
Yeah. It's complex.
Director Roberts?
Yeah, I think one important thing to point out is that, these assumption rates that they come up with, the 6.8%, those are over long periods of time, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. That's not what they project the market's going to make next year. So over the life of a pension, they're projecting that their investments are going to make 6.8% with the ups and downs. Obviously, we had, an up year or two. Now we're experiencing a down year or two. But I think that's important to point out. I also think it's important to point out that they've reduced the assumption rate over, many pension systems have reduced the assumption rate over the last few years, recognizing that, it is irresponsible to project such high returns, right? Because it's not going to hit 8%, 7.75% most of the time. So they've been reducing those assumptions, and as they reduce those assumptions, more of the burden falls on the sponsoring agency, ourselves, to make up for that when there are losses. On the flip side of that, we do contribute less when they're gains over 6.8%. So I think that's important. I think the other thing that's important to point out is that we're paying for the sins of previous board members who decided to, increase these benefits to amounts that weren't sustainable in the long run, and they thought they were doing the right thing at the time, right? And the state's experienced a lot of issues with that, which is why PEPRA was enacted in 2013, and that PEPRA will solve many of these problems, but we're kind of in the thick of it right now because we're only 10 years into PEPRA. We're not going to see the benefits of PEPRA for another, 20, 30 years, essentially, until, legacy members have either, retired and passed away, essentially. I think one of the other important points to point out is that, as Justin talks about, people working older and older, they might be getting more money when they retire, but the fact of the matter is, if you look at if you dive deep into the actuary, the people who work longer aren't going to have longer retirements because they're closer to death. And so, I think that, that's a point that's kind of, needs to be countered a little bit. And the fact that, longer people work, the more they're paying into the system, but also the less they're drawing on the system, because they're deferring retirement, essentially. So those are the things that I think about. I think that this contribution makes sense. I think that, we have a decent year to do it in with our water savings. And that's all I have to say at the moment.
Okay. I have two comments. I always get leery when I see on a staff report that there's no fiscal impact, because I remember going back in the archives and finding that there was no fiscal impact when we went to 2.5 at 55. I wasn't on this board at that point. However, I got thrown into it real fast when I got elected. And I did find out in my meeting with CalPERS, because I actually went to Sacramento and met with them, that we started out day one at $1.9 million in the hole. And if that's no fiscal impact, I don't know what is. So we've been behind the 8 ball ever since we started this thing. And I know 4 or 5 years ago, we looked at financing it, and there was nobody that really wanted to finance it. I'm wondering if we should look at seeing if there's somebody out there that wants to finance it now. And I know interest rates have gone up, but just an idea. We look at, getting it financed and get it paid off. And it may not save us any money. I don't know. That's the other side that we need to look at.
How
Yes.
would we finance a sum that's not certain?
Well, it is certain.
Well, that
We
goes-
can pay off the certain.
That goes to what our discussion earlier. You
Yeah,
would
we
look
can
at the
pay
year,
off
you
the
would pay
certain,
it off.
because that's what we're paying off with the 2 at 60 and the 2 at 62.
Yeah, if you did the whole.
Right, you'd have to pay the whole thing off, but then you still have the loan payment.
Yes.
Yeah, but the loan payment is probably going to be steadier than what CalPERS is going to be. So I think it's worth our while to take a look, because I don't like the trust funds. I agree with Director Malloy. That makes no sense to me.
You're looking at like a 40-year loan or something, though.
If I could,
Yeah.
and this is on me, I did admit this, but we did look at potentially other options. One option is a pension obligation bond, which at this point they were saying would be about 6% interest, which plus all the additional costs of doing it, when again you're looking at a 6.8%.
Right.
Again, you're locking in. The other concern with that is you're locking in, say, a 20-year payment plan. So we could steady at $850,000, but we don't get to benefit from the good years. And if it's a 20-year,
But we do get the benefit of the good years.
because we've paid the whole thing and we've locked in $850. If it gets to the point where there's 3 or 4 real good years in a row and our payment would have been 500,000. We've locked in at 850. So there's the pros and the cons to it. The other thing is, if you look at this, so they're projecting a cliff, and again, all projection, they're projecting a cliff at 2035, or 2036 to 37, we drop about 300,000 right now. Any kind of pension obligation bond we got would go about 10 years past that.
Okay.
So there are risks involved, and so we did look into that. And I think in the future, the problem right now is that the rates are at 5%. They were saying 2-3 years ago, when you're at 2%,
2%,
it
yeah.
was real attractive because
Yeah.
you could lock in a 3%
But we
rate.
had that other loan going, so
Mhm.
that didn't make sense, so.
Another option, and I'll bring it up since we're talking, is if we get to a point where we get a big capital project, but it can't be with Quimby money, is the unfortunate. But one suggestion is, if we do, and we can revisit this in the future, but if we have a big capital project that we're going to dedicate $1 million dollars to, again, we can't use Quimby, but if pickleball was paid from the general fund and we dedicated 1.4 million, one of the suggestions is take out a tax-free loan, which gets you far better interest rates. Use the tax-free loan to pay for the capital project, and then pay off the tax-free loan with what you were going to use on the capital project. So those are really the only other two funding options, but
That's the big what if.
yeah, and at this point, those weren't really, for where we're at with the economy and the district, those weren't the best options at this time. We thought we have some cost savings. And to clarify with the no fiscal impact, the direction would be to use a percentage of excess revenue of this year. So where we, with water, we budgeted and we're going to save, after the one-time payment, 230,000. If we use some of that savings, the way I'm considering that is no additional fiscal impact. Our expenses are still going to be less than what we had budgeted for this year. So that, just to clarify, that was my intention with that language.
Okay. I will entertain a motion to direct staff to make a CalPERS ADP of 1/3 of fiscal year 2023 excess revenue not to exceed $350,000.
So moved.
Second.
Karen?
Director Dransfeld,
Aye.
Director Malloy,
Aye.
Director Roberts, Director Roberts,
Did we lose him?
Close it and go back in.
Did we time out?
We were on the freebie and.
That's what I meant.
Our introductory plan just expired.
Well, that's what I saw. Please bear with us, everybody. We're trying to get Director Roberts back.
Budget allocate.
Yeah. There's where our money needs to go.
Oh, okay, so he's back.
I can hear people. Can you hear me?
Ah, yay. Director Roberts, we're voting on direct staff to make a CalPERS ADP of 1/3 of the fiscal year 2023 excess revenue not to exceed $350,000.
Director Roberts?
Aye.
Director Kelly? Chair Magner?
Aye. Okay, the next one is,
Could you take the slides all the way back to the beginning? I want to get something off of one of them.
Still need the second part of that? Before, but,
Not that. Got it.
Oh, that,
so need the second motion
okay.
for the budget
Yeah,
transfer?
I was going to say,
Okay,
I'll,
sorry about
I
that.
will entertain a second motion to direct staff, if necessary, to make a budget transfer from services and supply budget to personnel budget to cover any additional budget needed to make the payment.
So moved.
Second.
Director Malloy?
Aye.
Director Dransfeld?
Aye.
Director Roberts?
Aye.
Director Kelly? Chair Magner?
Aye. I'm going to combine my report with CSDA and VCSDA really quickly, so we can get out of here. I've spent parts of all 4 weeks in Sacramento during the month of May. A lot going on. We had legislative days was probably the most important thing. The 15th to the 17th of May, we met with legislators, and they did a really great program. One of the things that came out of it is that the National Coalition has agreed with all of the other, the Executive Board has made an agreement to have a definition that will be proposed in Congress. They're trying to find somebody to carry it, of what a special district is, and it will be identified as a political subdivision of a state with specific boundaries created pursuant to general law or act of the state for the purpose of performing limited and specific governmental or proprietary functions, except that is not a school, district, college, county, city, town, township, village, parish, borough, or other general purpose unit of government. So it's a mouthful, but they have come up with a definition of it. So we'll see if they can get it through Congress, and apparently we've already got 3 or 4 congressmen that are willing to take it once they get the bill written. So that takes more time than actually coming up with the definition, I think. But we had Ventura County Special Districts Association meeting last night. Director Malloy and General Manager Otten and I attended, and had a very good presentation by Brian Pendleton, who is the General Manager of the Ventura Harbor District. It was very interesting. And Charlotte Hollifield, who is the Public Affairs coordinator for our network, was there and gave some very good updates, as did the legislative representative Elaine Freeman. So was a really good meeting. So we will move on to 10C, Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy.
Our last meeting was on May 15th. There's nothing to report aside from the next meeting being June 26th at 6:30 p.m.
Okay, thank you. Finance?
Finance, lots of good news. Our cash hit $22 million on April 30th, the biggest number I can ever recall us having, and a great time to have it when interest rates are high. So far this year, our Fund 10 revenues are $450,000 over our annual budget. We're already up to $10,305,000, which is 104.5% of budget, and we still got 60 days left, although not much revenue comes in because there's no property taxes. Our property tax revenue is up over $600,000 over our previous fiscal year, and it's already $296,000 over a full year budget. Personnel and supply expenses are up $735,000 over last year to $5,571,000, but that's still only 71% of budget, and we're through 10 months now, which is 83%. So we're still really comfortable on service and supplies. Personnel expenses are up $550,000, but we're still only at 75% of budget. And water, which is a $910,000 annual item, we had just $13,000 a water bill for March. And with this overcast, cloudy weather, our good luck is continuing to hold on. So we're doing really great there. Electricity is a $217,000 budget item, and it was just $5,000 in April, so we're at 49% there. So redevelopment fees are up to $707,000 of our money is being taken for redevelopment, which is up $167,000 from the previous year. And I handed Councilman Tremblay a copy of our property tax bill showing $320,000 of our $3,400,000 being removed for the city's redevelopment, and he was somewhat shocked. But it's really getting big, and as you know, we have no control over that. As the projects go on, the bills just keep coming in. But overall, for the fiscal year, we're in great shape. That's all I got. Have you got anything I missed? No? Good.
Okay. All right, liaison for PV Fields. Who's speaking?
Director Roberts, I think, is.
Oh, sure. Why not? Yeah, we had a meeting. We hosted another meeting, reviewed different parts of the contract that we were breaking out. One of the sticking points is whether we should do a 3 or 5 year contract, so that'll be coming before the board. Obviously, some of the cons to a 5 year is, getting locked in, but that's for discussion at a later point. That's about where we're at with that, and in addition to bringing forth the updated contracts, we will see the option of remaining internal as far as the maintenance goes. One of the items, one of the other items that I just want to point out too is that I appreciate staff has done such a good job trying to protect the district from having future scenarios similar to what we've experienced with abandonment of services at Pleasant Valley Fields. So appreciate that for staff. Thank you for protecting the district and the citizens we serve, and trying to get the most thoughtful contract we can have there. End of report.
Okay, thank you. Personnel, we're dealing with some things, ongoing things that are in closed sessions, so there's nothing to report on that. Policy committee? What are we working on?
We just finished naming policy, so now we're working on general policy documents.
General use policy, yeah. So, meeting quite often. Ad hoc for the Miracle League?
Construction is going really well. All the concrete perimeter fencing and the poles inside that perimeter fencing are in. The drainage swale has created and has already seen service in our last little mini rainstorm. Spectator area behind home plate was to be poured this week. We saw the rebar in it on Monday when we had our meeting. Had a few change orders, changing the poles from galvanized poles to black powder coated poles, which look really nice. We relocated the snack bar to a place where there's a little more space, and where they were going to put a storage bin, we're going to put Homer, the Miracle League mascot, instead right behind home plate. So we'll have a really nice photo opportunity, and Homer will be visible from Pleasant Valley Road too, which will help people see where the Miracle League field is. Another great little change. The retention pond area next to this, because this surface is all 100% runoff, so we had to allow for all the runoff by creating a retention pond next to it. That retention pond completely filled up before we even built this field, when we had our little rainstorm. And it's pretty deep. It's deep enough to be dangerous. So we're going to have a fence put around that retention pond so that kids can't get into, try and turn it into a swimming pool or something more dangerous. But other than that, things have gone really well on the project. As we've seen before, Hughes Construction is just totally on top of things and really a great company to work with. And the Miracle League people are really happy too, and it's really, really moving fast. It's, in our line of work, we don't get to see things move fast very often. So it's really exciting to see what's going on out there.
It changes every week when we go out there, so it is exciting. So, okay. Director Dransfeld, Foundation for Pleasant Valley Recreation and Parks.
For our fundraiser from Panera, we raised $35.31, which will go toward our operating expenses. Our next restaurant fundraiser is on July 5th at Mr. Softy, and it will be held all day. 10% of the total sales from the entire day will be donated to the foundation. We will have a sales booth at the district's rummage sale on June 17th. Please come visit us, and if you have anything to donate or goods, please contact us. Some upcoming events that we have: Painting with a Purpose on Thursday, July 20th. Registration is open, and you can find more information at pvrpfoundation.org. And then same with our 7th annual Party for the Parks. The date has been set for Saturday, September 9th. We are looking for sponsors and in-kind donations. An update on a Camarillo Grove Nature Classroom. The build permit is still in process for approval with the County of Ventura. We're hoping to receive approval any day. As far as our meetings, the Foundation Board has 3 vacant seats for board members. We welcomed our newest member, Jody Pena, at the May board meeting, and Jody will also be our Event Advisory Committee Chair. Our first Event Advisory meeting will be held on Wednesday, June 21st at 5:30. If anyone is interested in helping plan events and fundraisers, attend to learn more. Thank you so much.
Thank you. General Manager's Report.
Okay. So we'll do some quick updates. Freedom Park, Dog Park, that's moving along. So the lights, the curbing, the walkways are all completed. Next step is to start working on the actual turf. So that'll start working on that the rest of this week, next week, and beyond. As you've heard, the Freedom Pickleball Complex, where we're at right now is the stormwater prevention plan. It's with the city. We're hoping maybe by the end of this week, next week, get the permit. Once we get the permit, then we can actually start demo. So that would be the next big hurdle. So hoping that will come along. Bob Kildee baseball lights, we know there's quite a few lights. They were out there working today. So they're currently in process, working to replace those. Those should be done by the end of next week. So that's moving along out there. Some great news on the recreation side. Camp Fantastic, they're full with the exception of weeks 8 and 9. Now the next step is to get all the part-time staff oriented and trained, which will be about 30 or so toward the end of this week. So Caitlin and recreation staff will have their hands full. Senior programs, senior prom was held on May 19th. We had over 60 seniors, so moving that time has helped. So that's continuing to grow. Doing senior socials, moving that time, that's helping. Special events, want to do a shout out to all the volunteers that came out for National Trails Day. Director Malloy actually got his boots dirty.
My back still hurts.
Shoveled and moved stuff. So shout out, that really helped. A lot of stuff was done that day. As Director Dransfeld said, we have a rummage sale on June 17th, Summer Palooza June 30th, and July 1st, and then right around the corner is our summer concert series. So those are some things that are happening right now. Aquatics summer lessons are full. We're starting summer sports registration, so that's going on the admin side, finishing up with this year's budget, starting next year's budget, getting all of that, working on Ordinance 8 general use. I think we have like four cell towers that are in the works and, finishing up some of that. Before I end my report, there's two things I need to do. Is one, introduce Matt Parker, who's our new Parks Services Manager. So welcome, Matt. Or should I say welcome back? So Matt was with us for 23 years and then left us for 4 and is now back. So welcome back. The other thing I need to do is congratulate Bob on a well-deserved retirement. Just a couple quick notes, Bob. So throughout your dedicated 26 years, make sure I have that right, you made a lasting impact on both your colleagues and the organization as a whole. Your expertise, achievements, and unwavering commitment have been an inspiration to all of us, so I want to thank you for that. As you embark on your new chapter of life, may it be filled with joy, relaxation, and maybe some family time. I'm just hoping they won't make you work too much. So we are immensely grateful for your contributions and positive influence. So once again, congratulations, it's well-deserved. That's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we'll do board members. Director Roberts, would you like to share anything with us?
Sorry, trying to unmute there. Only thing I'll report is, let's see, board meetings on May 3rd. We had a board budget workshop on May 9th, liaison on the 10th, and another liaison on the 30th. And Bob, just want to congratulate you on your retirement, and that is all.
Okay, thank you. Director Kelly?
Just like to remind all of our constituents who put every one of us here in office what our job really is. If you ever watch our meetings or come to our meetings, you'll notice that everything comes to us and we vote on it, but it's all prepared by the staff along with the oversight from the general manager. We do not, although I've seen Malloy out there fixing sprinkler heads and stuff, in the past, and I still pull weeds to this day. I'm sure the rest of the crew has jumped in and done something here and there to help out. However, we've had classes on how to behave as board members, and basically we have become students of the game, and we understand that everything comes through the staff and the general manager, and if it's something that we need to vote on, then we vote on it. And that's why many times people who come to the board meetings, which we really want that to happen, or who make calls to the district, or even contact us, we generally tell them to contact the district and talk to staff, because we can't really make a decision on things that are outside our purview. We vote on things ultimately, and that's what we do, and that's what we're elected to do, and that's what we're supposed to do. So yes, you can call us, and yes, if there's something we can do, we'll do it, each and every one of us. But it does start with staff, and They prepare these excellent reports for us. We get them in advance and read them and go through the discussion. Everyone asks questions, and eventually each member votes the way, that they see fit. So the easiest way to get what you want is to follow the protocols, go through the staff. It starts there, and eventually, if it's something that we need to vote on, we'll vote on it. But there's been ever since I've been on this board, there's been a misconception on what we do, and what we're elected to do. And we have a wonderful staff, great general manager. Believe me, we read every single email. For instance, tonight we had a discussion on pickleball. I guarantee you every single board member read every single email, which there were many, more than I've seen in a long time. We read every single one of them. We know what the community thinks based on those emails. And this board has, for instance, and again in regard to pickleball, we've been involved in this process for 2 years. We are the ones that made sure that we put money towards that complex, which we want to be a really great complex, and we're working hard. We have a lot of limitations, as was pointed out by some of the other board members tonight. And I'm going to end this with just this one little story that happened to me when I was a young lawyer. Well, actually, I was still in law school. I was doing moot court. This is what we call fake court, where they have one night where you prepare your briefs and you go downtown to the appellate courthouse, and they have real appellate judges there that judge your performance regarding some legal issue that there's no answer to, that they have dreamed up. And it's kind of a rite of passage for most young law students. And you want to do well, believe me, because you're in front of everybody, and a stupid mistake will seem 10 times worse than it might ordinarily be. At any rate, I got up there and I gave my argument, and I just let those judges have it. And later on, we were at the refreshment room, and one of the judges that was on my panel came up to me and said, "Bob, that was a great performance, and I marked you high." He says, "But don't always assume that just because you're making your argument, there isn't a judge or two that's on your side. And sometimes they might ask you a question just to help you out, to give you some traction. Maybe they think you're veering off in the wrong direction and they want to get you back on. And so don't assume that they're against you." And so I'm maybe that little story will be something that can be considered, because we're not the enemy. We're here to represent you, and we're going to try to do the best job that we can, and we'll continue to do so. Thank you.
All right, for meetings attended, the board meeting on May 3rd, budget meeting on May 9th, the foundation meeting on May 10th, and then the finance meeting on May 17th. After that, attended the Boys and Girls Club grand opening. And then on the 22nd, or 15th, I'm sorry, Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy meeting. And I just want to thank staff for all of their hard work, and really want to thank Bob. This time I know it's the right meeting. And not giving you a month off. But thank you so much for everything that you've done. You are going to be very missed. You bring a presence to a room, and it can't be replaced. So I hope you have a wonderful time relaxing, and and with your family that I know are going to be so happy to have you. But thank you.
Oh, meetings attended. Miracle League Ad Hoc, May 1st. Regular board meeting, May 3rd. Budget workshop, May 9th. Another Miracle League meeting, May 15th. May 17th, the Finance Committee with Director Ransfeld and also the Boys and Girls Club grand opening. And May 30th, Miracle League Ad Hoc meeting. One of Kathleen's favorite was Bob. And we are going to miss you a lot. You've done a hell of a job for the district for a really long time. You work at a job that you can't ever make everybody happy at. And you have to make do with a lot less than what you'd like to, and with a lot of regulation and compromises and delays that get in your way and make things so much more difficult for you. And fortunately, Matt's been around to see a lot of this stuff, and he's also seen it in Santa Barbara and Caneo. So I'm confident that we're well equipped to continue to move forward. But thank you so much for what you've done. You've been a great service to us. That's all I got.
Meetings. Miracle League. First and 8th and 22nd and 29th, I spend half my time out there with Bob. That he's not going to be there anymore, but that's okay. I'll get back to you, Bob. Also, board meeting on the 3rd, budget meeting on the 9th, foundation on the 10th. Represented us at the legislative days on the 15th, 16th, and 17th in Sacramento. I also attended the chapter meetings for the North LA County chapter in Palmdale and the Santa Barbara County chapter in Buellton. Also attended or was involved with the personnel meeting on the 24th, or policy on the 24th and personnel on the 25th. So was, as I said, very busy before. Matt, welcome back. It was nice to see you in the office on Monday when we saw you. And Bob, you know what I think about you, and you will never live down the light pole that does not exist on BK2. So that'll always be our thing, is the light pole that doesn't exist on BK2. So every time I see you, I think about that, and totally enjoy that lovely wife of yours and your family, and spend as much time with them as you can. So, and with that, I will adjourn the meeting. I was going to make him come up, but I can't do that.